Okay. Got everything all set here. All right, so where you guys just left off, you just left Pepperjack. It is about 10 a.m. There you go. And you guys are in the war camp at Dunskathek. What is it you're going to do?
Are we ready to head off and look for the ship, or do we need to do anything else?
You asking me, or you asking your party?
I was asking the team.
I don't think there's anything else I have to do, although Pepperjack's supposed to try and get us a better sending stone.
Oh, yes, we should probably do that.
He had told you that he would send a scout to find you in camp when he could get a stone ready for you, and then also remember he was going to have that scout show you where the exit is to the tunnel, so that if you guys come back and the place is under siege, that you can use the tunnel to get back in. Remember?
Oh.
The flanking rules, did everybody see those? I know Fox did, because we talked about them. Ben and Becky, did you guys see the flanking rules thing I put in Discord?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Doesn't come up with you guys quite so much, just because usually Sarah and Arteme are at range anyways, but in case it does. I guess with Samson it could potentially anyways. NPCs obviously work the same as players in this case, so.
Yeah, so basically just if we're directly across from each other and two friendlies, like monkey in the middle, then it's +2. And if somebody's askew to the side, it's +1, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Sweet.
Alright, so then if you guys are just killing time in camp, is there anything specific you guys are trying to do to prepare? Like, is there anything left you guys needed to do before you guys leave? Because you won't be back for a few days, the way the Pepperjack made it sound.
I'd probably go check the traps, get a bit of provisions speed-wise, and start working on another one of the tents.
Okay. Give me 2 survival checks for your traps. One thing to note too, Ben, you didn't have Norok attune the Vulcanbreaker yet.
Okay, that I will do.
Okay, it takes an hour to do
wait.
it, so you could presumably do it, during that time. Go ahead and mark it that
I'll
it's
do that.
attuned, so that it's listed there. Because you wouldn't get most of the benefit. Well, you wouldn't get the special things. You'd only get the +2 if you didn't attune it. So,
Okay.
both of the traps actually, when you get there, the 2 larger ones have like bear traps. You get there and they both have an animal stuck in them, and both are already dead. It was previous night and they've been bleeding out. So they're you get there and both have a full deer. It'll take you a while if you're going to try to clean them and bring everything in. What is your intent? Like, it basically would take you a good long time, probably take you 2-3 hours to clean both of them and try to pack in all of that meat, let alone the skins.
Yeah, well, I'd probably pack it in, save whatever I could, bring it in, like, to the camp, and leave it for whoever to use it.
Okay. In the span, I'll say the first hour, while Norok is kind of just sitting there with the axe on his knees and going over it, the Warmatic. When you make your way back in the first time, the same guard that was at the gate that kind of questioned you when you went out before is there, and he sees you with most of a deer slung over a shoulder, walking in and says, "Oh, you bringing that in to feed the camp? Is that? I mean, I wasn't trying to be rude last time, but I guess you are showing a little bit of proof, I suppose, that that's what you were doing out there."
Leaving some, bring some.
He says, "Do you need any help with that? I mean, we've got folk in here that can help you clean that."
Sure.
Do you tell him where it is?
Oh, yeah, I also point out where the traps are in case they want to go check them for me.
Okay. Then you kind of make your way back into the rest of the camp with the skinned deer over a shoulder, which of course is not easy to do, to lug it back in. It wasn't a huge one, but you carry it the rest of the way in, and they send out. You see 2 other guards that are heading out that way to go take care of the other. But when you is Sarah doing anything during this time? It's been about an hour or so. Does she do it? Does she have anything to do for an hour?
Not really. She's probably just gonna be sitting there, surreptitiously staring at her hand, trying to figure out how fast it's growing.
Okay.
But I do want to give the oil of sharpness to Nora.
Did you still have one of those?
I do.
Okay.
It's in my
Yeah, mark it out of your inventory, and then if you don't think you'll use it again, we can delete it off of your sheet. No, you didn't have it on your. You don't have it on your actions tab, anyways. So, yeah, you can go ahead and just hand that over. Ben, you had 3 already. Each one was 2, so that'll give you a total of 5. I just updated it for you. What was that, anyways? That is going to be ridiculously overpowered for a while till you burn out, until you use it all. 5 charges of +3 to attack and damage rolls. I think that was a random item when you guys were in Misedsu, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember it was a random item off of a table anyway, so I think that's where it came from. All right, then while you're sitting there, Norok is kind of going over the axe, and you've handed that to him, kind of tossed it in his bag. You recognize this woman, walks up. It's an elven woman. In fact, I think I still have the VA for her. But you've met her a couple of times. A member of the Crowblinders that walks up just as Arteme is kind of walking back towards where you guys are sitting on your rocky outcropping, with a deer over her shoulder. Let me see if I still have their VA in here. I do. There you go. It is Clover. Walks up as you guys are sitting there, and kind of with Arteme coming up behind her, she kind of turns over her shoulder and says, "You were that lucky, huh?"
I just sharp.
It's still going to take you some time to clean it, I suppose. But she kind of nods at you and looks back at as you're rejoining the group at the 3 of you. You notice, actually, all 3 of you make perception checks real quick. That shield didn't help you too much.
Dang.
As you are approaching Arteme, coming up, kind of behind her a little bit, you notice she keeps looking over her shoulder. And at first, she looks over her shoulder and kind of plays it off like she's looking at you, but her eyes kind of like dart left and right a little bit over your head every time, like she's looking around a little bit. And then she turns back to the group as you've kind of rejoined everybody. She says, "Pepperjack asked me to take you guys out of camp to show you where the entrance is in case you need it later." But and she kind of looks over her right shoulder this time, away from Arteme, but out through the rest of the camp again, and then looks back and she kind of quiets her voice a little bit. She says, "And he asked me to pass along a message as well. One, he said that unfortunately he couldn't find a better Stone of Far Speech for you in the meantime, that Stone of Sending will have to do, but he did ask that you report the status of your expedition back each night if you can. And he specified to do this away from prying ears." And she kind of squints a little bit as she says this. Okay, I'm going to use just Arteme's perception was high enough to pull that off, so hang on one sec.
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm sending you a message here in just a second, because you were the only one that rolled high enough on your perception. There you go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. So with that, you're the only one that kind of picked that up. All 3 of you make... Well, here's the thing. I'm curious if Norok, Arteme, and Sarah would inadvertently give away something. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say this out loud, but only Arteme is potentially the one that could work off of this knowledge. So Pepperjack told her to pass along this message to report back every night, but specifically to do it away from prying ears, right? Everybody get that? Now,
Yeah.
you guys might understand what that means, and Pepperjack understood that's what that means, and that's why he told it to her that way. But he didn't tell her. Apparently, is the impression that you've all gathered. Only Artemis is the one that really picked up on this. But basically, that you guys gather that means away from Samson, right? Everybody understand that?
Yeah.
But Clover doesn't get that. Clover doesn't understand. He didn't tell her. Is what you guys have gathered is that he didn't tell her that. But she's trying to kind of squint. She's trying to look at you guys to see if you might give it away. What the reason might be that's the case. So what I'm curious about is if Sarah, Artemis, or Nora would have potentially inadvertently given away any details, basically given her enough clues to recognize that might be the case. So all three of you make deception checks for me.
I was gonna say the only thing Sarah probably would have done was just held her hand out for the stone and said, "Thanks, we'll keep that in mind."
She didn't have a stone for you.
I thought because we had given him the stone.
Oh yeah,
back.
okay, yeah. So sorry, the sending stone back. Okay, I got you. Not the stone of far speech. Yeah. Okay. Well, she rolled pretty high on her insight check, so okay. I just needed to know that basically. So nothing for you guys just yet, but whether or not she noticed some certain details, basically like whether you accidentally look over your shoulder, whether look around like looking for somebody, that kind of stuff, anything that might have given it away. Okay. Making a note here real quick. Okay. So she hands you the stone back, though. She says, well, I suppose you guys would understand what that means. But he asked me to take all of you out of the camp anyways to show you where that entrance is in case you need it. It seems pretty likely that we'll be under siege by the time you get back anyways. Also, when she kind of looks over at Artemis' bag and at the extra axe, well, maybe not extra, I don't know, but the axe that's sitting on Norok's back, she says, Rook is trying to requisition as many spare weapons and supplies as she can for this siege. Do you guys have anything that, might be weighing you down for this trip that may not be useful for you? Might save some lives here at the camp? I mean, we don't have much in the coffers to compensate you with, but, it might save lives.
I don't need my great axe anymore. I'll hand it over. Is anybody big enough to use it?
She kind of smiles. She says, well, I mean, I'm not going to lug that thing around, but if you just set it here, I'll let the other guards know to come and grab it.
Cool.
Anything else?
Got a couple daggers you can have if you want them.
Actually, let me check.
Let me know anything you guys aren't going to use. Well, I guess the great axe I'll put on here too, but...
I will also hand over one of my daggers and one of my hand axes too, because I've got two of each.
Okay.
So.
I
Or
don't
actually,
really
I've
have
got 3 daggers, so I'll hand over 2 daggers. Sorry, and one hand axe.
Okay.
I
And
don't
2
really
daggers
have
from Sarah.
anything extra.
Okay.
I'm gonna give her 4 daggers. I've got 6, and I don't ever use them. So.
Okay. Then you have a shadowy one too that you can always use too. So.
Yeah, and the foreboding knife I still have.
Okay. All right. She looks at the deer on your shoulder. She says, "You gonna eat all of that?"
Provisions for the road. There's another one I left with this guy.
She kind of smiles and nods. She was just kidding anyways. She assumed that was the case. All right, but she says thanks for offering as much as you guys can. You guys have been a huge help already anyways, especially for stepping up, I guess, to defend your own. Well, I don't know if they're your people so much as the people here anyways, but certainly not military, and still offering your support as much as you can. I know Pepperjack appreciates it. And while she's in the middle of saying this, you hear the kind of clanking sound of Samson's armor. And he kind of comes stumbling around the corner of this rocky outcropping, this place where you guys have been kind of camping in here. And comes around the corner there. He's got a heavy pack thrown over his shoulder. He looks pretty beleaguered, a beleaguered old knight. Not really that old, but looks older than he actually should. But his eyes are clearly just rimmed red. His pupils are really big. He looks exhausted. And you guys haven't even really begun the trek yet. But as soon as she sees him, Clover's mouth kind of tightens into this very uniquely elvish facial expression, like a clear distaste. Like she doesn't seem to like him, which was the impression you got, of course, before in the tent as well, when Clover and Samson were both in there too. But do you guys remember that first night you guys met Pepperjack, or when you met him in the tent?
Sort of, yeah.
That's when I was getting dirty looks too, right?
Yeah. And Clover looks at him. She says, "Drinking late again, Samson?" And he just kind of mumbles, murmuring something under his breath. Probably Arteme would be the only one close enough. Make a perception check on Arteme. He looks up at you guys, though, ignoring her. He says, "Well, we're ready to go then?"
Almost.
Natural one, so never mind. I was going to see if Arteme would be able to overhear what he said, but you got a natural one, so...
Ouch. Cry.
That's a good start. He says, "Well, what else do we need to do? This thing's heavy." And he kind of sets it down in the mud.
Well, we need to be shown the other entrance into camp in case we have to use it.
He kind of sighs, looking back over at Clover and realizing that that must mean that's why she's here, is to kind of take you guys there. And she kind of just nods at him. She says, "That's right." And has a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not contemplative. C-O-N-T, when you don't like somebody. Contempted, yeah. Contemptible kind of a smile, essentially, yeah. At him. It's very clear she doesn't like him. You guys have gathered that a few times. But anyway, she says, "Well, I'm ready when you guys are."
I'm good.
The deer, you could lug it over your shoulder. You could probably, with some effort, get it to fit in. Like if you cut it, some smaller pieces, basically, you could get it to fit into the bag of holding, so that you're not carrying a whole deer over your shoulder for 2 days trip.
Yeah, well, I would have cut it into strips and stuff.
Okay. We'll say that you basically did most of that on the trip in, and maybe she was questioning, that your shoulder was covered in blood, and assumed that that's, was hunting outside kind of thing. As far as the narrative explanation. So, all right. So you've packed away most of the meat for a single deer, which would be enough for 4 people for 2 days for sure. So as far as meat's concerned and food, I mean, especially with any other things you might gather during the trip if you chose to. Is Sai's coming along, of course, so she just walking at your feet?
Yep.
Okay. So Clover, if you guys are all ready, she says, "Well, I mean, if you guys are all set, then we can head out. It won't take us long to get to where the entrance is."
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Then she leads you out to the eastern. It's not even really an entrance, but it's like a haphazard door, a ramshackle kind of a door, basically, that they built into this, that they could easily have filled with mud and wood to kind of basically it's a temporary hole in the wall that they could fill back up very quickly if they need to. But she leads you out through it, and as she motions to one of the soldiers that's standing on the wall and points back to where you guys left your things. She says, "There's some supplies back there. Would you do me a favor and get those over to Rook, please?" And they kind of just nod and head over to go take care of that. And she leads you out into the kind of open, somewhat swampy Badlands area, out to the northeast a ways. And it takes you 3-4 minutes, not long, to get there, but it's far enough outside that kind of a walk, especially on a underground tunnel, would get you well enough outside the walls that hopefully would be outside of the a siege line, that you could find it. And in the distance you see this kind of copse of trees that there's a small slope of, so you can see basically some trees, and then there's a hill underneath that goes downward. And as soon as you get there, you see just a big boulder in the middle of this, and all these trees are kind of around it. So you wouldn't really notice it, especially from a distance. It would just look like a giant boulder. But when she walks up towards it, she kind of just motions you forward. By the way, this entire time, Samson is carrying this big heavy-ass bag over her shoulder, and is grunting and complaining and kind of lugging this behind, and is clearly falling behind numerous times, and you have to slow down a little bit to let him catch up. But she doesn't seem to be slowing down to let him catch up at all. As well as there, Nah, never mind. The three of you probably wouldn't maybe notice this. Go make another perception check on Arteme. But this rock, as she approaches this big boulder, natural 2. Slightly better, still not enough to get you any intel. Anyway, this boulder that she kind of heads down this little slope a little ways towards, she walks towards it and kind of puts her hand out, and there's just the slightest kind of recognition that she is showing you something, basically. But her hand passes into it, and she's basically, you get the impression that she's only doing this for your benefit, that she wouldn't have bothered slowing down at all except to show you. But her hand passes into the rock, and she just kind of steps into it and is gone. And you, kind of following close behind, realize, of course, she just says, "Come on, it's fine." You can hear her still, you just can't see her. But as soon as you kind of step towards this rock and you pass in through it, you realize it's just an illusion. And as soon as you step into it, there's still sun from outside. It looks slightly hazy because it's traveling through this illusory rock that's there. But you step into what is just the normal ground. It's the same, kind of foresty, strewn, leaf strewn and dirt kind of ground that was already there before. With this illusory rock kind of in place over it. But in the middle of this is like a cellar door entrance. Like a cellar door that's on the ground. That's basically like a flat door, almost like a secret hatch. Basically that on the ground there. That's all it's been rebuilt. It was clearly there probably was no wood here because it's all brand new wood. But a new door essentially that is built over this hole in the ground. And she's already lifted it up as you guys have passed through the rock and is kind of pointing down. She says, "This is it right here." So it won't be hard to find, but there could be a lot of potentially hostile soldiers around. So you may need to be careful and sneaky about getting into here. But once you're inside this rock, you should be okay.
All right.
Okay.
Because he's been murmuring a lot anyways, what would be the marching order? Who was, like, if you guys, was anybody trying to talk to Clover or anything during this little 3-minute march out here? Was anybody close to her? Was anybody close to Samson?
I probably would have been in the rear, so I'm guessing I would have been closest to Samson since he's lagging behind.
Okay.
So
I would have probably been a bit closer to Clover just to try and see any details and mark.
Both of you give me perception checks. What was Sarah doing on this walk? Was staring at her hand?
The broom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! Yeah, never mind.
Yep, I'm hovering like a foot
gotta
off
remember
the ground.
Yeah, putting as little effort in as possible.
Are you still flying on the broom? Is that it?
Yeah, that's what she said. She was just basically, hovering over the ground at, normal walking height, but, putting in no effort, of course. Natural 7. I thought it was a 2, but it was a natural 7 this time, Fox. So you did slightly better.
Yay!
And Ben got a natural 7 as well, so both of you. Not a whole lot of details. Arteme, you... here, I'll just give you this. There's a famous group of elves that you'd be vaguely familiar with, never having met him or anything of that sort, but based on some details that you noticed, and I'm going to whisper over to Arme here, you... I'd say that you probably actually noticed other details first, specifically the way she carries herself, maybe, as being particularly adept, let's say, and then you notice this small detail. You got that?
Yep.
Okay. And those are the good... Well, okay. Usually I have those typed out as notes ahead of time, but these were things that I wasn't sure if you guys were going to notice or not. For Norok...
cool.
There you go. Fox, you got those, right?
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Then those things, Sarah being kind of out of it and just moving along on her broom. Who took Scatter's spellbook?
I think I had.
Yeah.
Is it in the bag?
You should be.
Okay. I was just curious, in case that comes up. So keep in mind, too, that, I mean, that is full of spells, of course, that presumably if Arteme were to read over and potentially find ones that could be ritualized, you could potentially copy, but you would need to do that before you give that spellbook to someone else or whatever. So.
Yeah, I was gonna try and find or make ink for it, but I'm just not sure what's in.
Making it, I haven't really thought of what the recipe might be for something like that, but I'll come up with that if that's your kind of goal. Usually that's the thing you would purchase, but what's that?
Like, if I can't find a place to purchase it before I have to give up the book, if I could craft the ink, that'd be great.
Sure. All right, so you guys, have shown you this, or she's shown you this now. She says, well, good luck out there. I understand that the mission that he sent you on is going to be an important one, so, you'll need to return with that as quick as you possibly can if we're going to get the Crow Fort here, and, that could be the difference between us surviving the siege and not, so... And she kind of, there's that similarly kind of scrunched up smile almost, basically, very like a reserved kind of a smile. And she just nods and says, well, I hope to see you back in a few days. And she heads back up the little slope and back towards camp, leaving the three of you with Samson there.
So which way are we headed?
He clears his throat. He's been mumbling the entire time, and you guys could all hear that he was mumbling, but only Norok was close enough to pick up some of the things he was saying. But he kind of clears his throat and kind of looks up. He's already tired. He looks like he didn't sleep, if at all. He's probably slept very little. In fact, all three of you give me perception checks again now that you're actually looking at him and Clover's gone. He says, in answer to your question, he says, well, I think our best bet would be to make our way to Cadogan. If you guys don't know the area here, it's a port town, so we should be able to hire a vessel there to help us locate the Emperor of the Waves. And the name he gave was...
Okay.
There you go. Here.
Huh.
All right. So that, anyways, she says, I think that would be our best bet. I mean, it's the closest port city that we'd be able to find. It's not very big, but there's usually some ships in and out of there that we could probably find, even a small one, to get us out onto the sea. That sound good?
All right.
Sure.
Cool.
He kind of nods. He looks at Norok. He says, "Look, I'm a soldier, and you're not. I know you're just a civilian, but this thing is heavy as fuck. Do you mind? Is there any way you could help me shoulder some of this?"
Yeah, why not? I'm feeling nice today.
He says, "I mean, you don't need to. Well, I'm not going to open the bag. If you don't mind carrying it for a little while, maybe we can just trade off. Does that work for you?"
Yeah, no problem.
He kind of hands you this bag. There's metal clinking inside, and as soon as he hands it to you, you haven't really noticed this because you hadn't looked at him too much until now because he'd been kind of just grumbling and walking behind for the most part. But there's the bag itself is wrapped in a chain. There's like a solid chain that's wrapped around the top of this, and then it loops around the outside of it. It's locked essentially. The bag itself is basically locked. The bag is made of some kind of a leather, like you could probably cut through it if you needed to, but it basically is just a security measure, either to keep somebody out or maybe to keep something in. You don't know. But there's metal clinking around inside, and it's heavy against your back. Like even you lifting it, it's not hard for you to carry it, especially with your size. But it's you can see why that would be difficult for a human size to be carrying that thing.
Okay.
He says, "Oh, he's rolling his shoulders back and forth." He says, "That's a huge relief. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to help shoulder that a bit.
Yeah, no problem.
Normally we have better means of carrying around heavy things, but we're a little light on supplies and support at the moment. So, well, are we off, ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. He kind of heads up the little slope a little ways, heading out into the up into the outside of this little copse of trees and out into this kind of open plains area, which you're basically northeast now of Dunscathach. So as you're kind of passing, you can see it to your south or to the south of you to your left, and you're making your way through pretty open area. There's lots of little copses of trees around, but beyond that, it's basically a pretty kind of wet plains, almost swampy. Not quite wet enough to be swampy, but it's wide open, and you see no people. There's two major roads that you can see up ahead that go north to south, basically directly in front of you. A ways in front of you that you can see, and you don't see any travelers along either of these. Basically, the high roads that would travel between two major kingdoms like this, two major nations. And you should see travel. You should see traders and merchants and things like that, and there's just nobody out there. It's basically when you guys kind of walked along one of those roads. In fact, when that little trading post that you guys went to where that troll was, remember?
Mm-hmm.
You were traveling along it, and again, then you didn't see very many people either, but now it's just dead. There's just nobody around. But you make your way out there. A couple hours pass. Samson kind of falls back behind. He says, you've spent some time carrying that. I wouldn't feel right if I just let you carry it the whole way, so I'll take that back if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll hand it back to him. But when I take it off my back, can I, not in any kind of, way that makes it look like I'm doing anything, but can I put out a listen to see if I can hear if there's anything jingling in there? Or when I pass it past my, to him, can I smell anything? Or is that two separate rolls?
No, it'd be perception. Just one perception roll is fine. I mean, you're just basically paying attention, trying to identify what's in it, so it's still for one purpose. I wouldn't say using two separate senses is going to change that. So give me a perception roll.
And again, just as I'm passing it, not stopping, looking at it, anything like that.
Okay. It's definitely different things inside of it. It doesn't feel like it's one solid piece. It is jingling around, but not in the way of like coins or anything like that. Basically, it feels like large metal objects inside there that are not directly connected. They're basically banging against each other inside of it. You could hear it like every step you were taking, where it's banging against your back a little bit. They were kind of banging together a little. So I mean, you've heard it plenty. You don't smell anything at all. There's no scent coming off of it beyond just the leather itself and maybe the chains kind of rattling a little bit. But if you had to guess, you would probably say that it's like maybe multiple shields in there, like steel shields that are clanging against each other or something like that. It feels like big metal plates, maybe something like that, basically, like a frame or because it doesn't feel. It's not bulky so much. Like it's awkwardly shaped certainly, but it doesn't feel like it's not like a machine or anything like that as far as you could tell. But if you would gather probably something like big shields, almost like big round shields.
All right.
Okay. But you hand that back over to him, and he's kind of moving a little slower again. So he's back with you. Sarah's floating on her broom. Arteme in front as well. I guess what's the marching order look like?
I'm still taking up the rear, so I'd be in front of Samson, I guess. Well, soon, and fall behind, but keeping the little ones so I can see them.
I'd probably be second in a bit, just marking like a bit of a map so we know how.
Okay. And then
Go
Sarah
front.
floating in front?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I asked you before you got that, you didn't even know the broom was coming, but before that broom showed up, I asked you if Sarah was afraid of heights.
Yeah, no, that's why I say I'm floating like a foot off the ground.
Okay, so that's what I was curious about. Is that's why she was floating a foot off the ground? Because let's say that probably the most people, if they weren't afraid of heights, would probably take it up a little ways to kind of scout the area. Like go up and see if there's anything around. I was just curious if Sarah's ever taking it around to going like a little fun jaunt with it, or is it always just above the ground?
Just above the ground, unless I absolutely have to. Then she can deal with heights, like she had to jump out her bedroom window on the second floor.
Sure, yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, no, if she doesn't have to, it's just above the ground.
Okay. Just keep that if that ever came up and there was a need for that. That is certainly a possibility of being able to use it for kind of scouting runs and that kind of thing. But Arteme can use it too. It's just too small for Norok. Like it wouldn't be able to carry Norok. Is all. So. You might be
Okay,
able to
so
get
it's-
like, what's that?
Okay, so I'd be doing the scouting with it more than anything.
Either of you could, just basically all three of you could if Norok was, like half of his size, but since he's too heavy, like he might be able to get like a couple inches off the ground, but that's going to be it. So, like it's just not going to be able to pick him up. But either Sarah or Arteme could, actually use it to fly up high and go scouting and stuff if it was needed. Where is my? There it is.
You
Cool.
know, if you want to do scouting, it's got to be on her way. I don't think Sarah ever would willingly do that.
Sure. Then with you guys kind of traveling over this, there's just very little in the way of wildlife. You're almost seeing you're seeing very few animals. Occasional birds, but they're very small birds. You don't see very many big ones. You gather, of course, that now you guys have, it's been a few hours northwest rather now of Dunskathek, but the kind of area surrounding Dunskathek has been pretty heavily hunted. Just to feed the people there. So you're not seeing much in the way of wildlife. You're not seeing any people, which you've come to expect now, of course, because there's essentially the kind of beginnings of war between these two countries, and you're kind of right in the middle right now. So that's not too much of a surprise, but you would otherwise expect to see a lot of travel. But it's basically a pretty boring walk. Like you don't have horses. You don't. It's pretty much just a constant march with Samson there, and Samson isn't talking a lot, especially while he's kind of grunting and carrying this thing. Eventually, though, over time, since you're back kind of near him, Norok, near the back of the group there, he says, and this is like between grunts of these steps. He says, "I know very little of your people, Norok. Your friend back there at the camp there, the wounded Yogg. What is he to you?"
He's one of the oldest of us and one of the wisest. So, definitely a big loss if he doesn't make it.
Are you looking at him, or because he's behind you a little bit? So, I mean, are you slowing down to kind of talk to him, or is he talking to you to your back?
I'll stop a little bit and turn my head, but not turn around. So I'm kind of looking behind me and wait for him to catch up a little bit, but still not falling too far behind the ladies.
Okay. He's kind of, still grunting a little bit, trying to get this out. You can tell he's trying to be cordial, like he's trying to thank you, essentially, but not be rude about it that you're, willing to carry this for him. Even trading it off with him, basically. You get the impression that he may have also gathered that you heard a little bit of what when he was complaining earlier, that you might have heard that, and he doesn't want you to have that impression about him, I guess, is what you're gathering. Does that make sense? Because Arteme and Sarah don't know that. So, but anyways, he says, through kind of these grunting breaths, he says, "You realize that he may pass though before we return, right? I mean, is it not in your culture to spend your last moments with those that you care about?"
It is. We're definitely very much tribe and family oriented, but if we don't take care of this, there ain't gonna be any of us left. So
he kind of nods and he's quiet for a second. He says, "Yeah, I can get that. I mean, to be honest, when my mother passed, it was long and slow and painful, and I probably would have rathered I missed it."
yeah, well, that too. So
he says, "I mean, if he's gone by the time we get back, it's really outside my capabilities, but there are ways of bringing people back." What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I don't really know what that would entail. I mean, when they're dead, right?
I mean, that's usually the case. Generally, the more money you have, the better your chances are of bringing folk back. And to be honest, I don't know if it would even work for a Yogg anyways. I've only ever seen it done to humans, but
The only ones I've ever seen are the mindless ones that seem to be controlled by some kind of magic or something. He's going to be something like that. He's better off dead. Staying dead.
well, that's not always true, is the thing. There's definitely ways of bringing folk back to where they're themselves, and they don't have long. You don't, when someone's brought back in that way, they don't live the rest of the life that they otherwise would have lived. They're usually, may only have a few years left, but at least it's a couple more years than you would have otherwise had with them. So, it's at least a possibility, something to think of. Again, I don't know if it would even work on a Yogg anyways, but, if we get back safely, I'll certainly look into it, and I've got friends in the church that would be willing to help, especially with all the assistance you guys have been able to give so far.
Yeah, well, get us out learning about new things. There's other ways to do things except for ours, so maybe. Yeah, maybe. Thank you.
He just nods. It's been another hour and a half or so of him carrying this thing. You carried it for 3, and he's carried it for an hour and a half, and he's clearly grunting and falling further and further behind. He says, "Norok, I'm sorry to even ask. Look, I'm getting exhausted. Do you mind taking this thing over for a little bit?" And again, it was no effort for you, by the way. Like, it was heavy, sure, but it didn't slow you down at all.
Yeah, it's fine. Then we'll be faster anyway. Save us some time.
Okay. So you're coming up to early afternoon or so by now, and he's kind of passed it off. And as soon as you've got it back on your shoulders again, he kind of, he rolls over his shoulders again. He'd been throwing it, left shoulder to right shoulder every few minutes for a while, anyways. Especially he was getting more and more tired. But he's moved up further in the group and is kind of not in a rude way, but basically trying to lead the group essentially, because he is, essentially the only. Let's say actual military person here, and he's kind of the one with the actual orders. You're just kind of here to help essentially. Is kind of how he's presenting it. But again, not trying to be rude about it, but that's what he's doing. But he very clearly steps past both Arteme and Sarah up towards the front. And again, just being bored. Are you guys talking amongst yourselves or trying to talk to him at all beyond what he was discussing with Norok?
No, but seeing him push towards the front, I will slow down until I'm right behind Norok, and then I'm going to float a little bit higher and take a look at that lock on the bag.
Okay. Give me a well, you're not really touching it. Give me a perception check. While you're doing that, when you kind of floated back there, he kind of looking over his shoulder to Arteme, he says, "I must admit, Arteme, I've rarely gotten along well with elf folk. I mean, I'm a man of faith, and the Testament is dear to me." He says, "Do you still?" Shit. I meant to send you guys these notes early in the beginning. Here, here, a couple of notes for you guys that you need to know. So, you guys have heard about this before. You guys, all 3 of your characters would know about the Testament, anyways. But it's basically like a Bible. It's a religious text. The proofs of the Maker, also called the Word. It's basically the well, how much detail would you guys know? None of you guys would be believers of this faith particularly anyways, especially based on previous conversations you had with Quill. But he clearly is. He's a cleric of Etch, but specifically of this particular religion. And you guys know about the Crusades, right? Historically, what the Crusades were?
Yes.
Somewhat.
So they were religious. Basically, the Pope said there are too many non-believers in what he called the Holy Land, of course, which is basically the Arabian Peninsula, all over the Middle East now, and sent soldiers, but basically said, if you go there, all the people you kill don't count. You can go and murder and rape and loot and take anything you want, and it doesn't count. So under the guise of it being a religious war, sent people to try to take back Jerusalem, but really just to expand an empire. And that's the kind of analogy I would give here, that he calls it the sacred progressions, or that's what it's called in the world here. But it's basically just a series of wars that this is long before Mist, when it was still Vindi and a bunch of other smaller kingdoms, that sent soldiers to overtake the lands of the elves, which, and then enslaved most of the elves and so on, along with a bunch of other nearby groups, basically. This is when humans first came to this planet here. So anyways, that's what he describes, and then what he asks Arteme, he doesn't describe that series, rather, but he just, what he says to Arteme is that he rarely gets along with elves, because he's a man of faith and the Testament is important to him. He says, do you not hold a resentment against the humans for the sacred progressions? Most elves seem to.
I just shrug and say, people believe what they'll believe. There's no way of really changing it. You could just show them other things, but to hold a whole group in contempt or anger for the actions of a few from thousands of years past is just...
His eyes are kind of downcast while he's still walking. There's a very slight smile. He says, that's a very humble or humbling, rather, not humble, but humbling view. That's one I can appreciate. He kind of gives you a very small smile and turns back to walking. With that perception check, it looks like a really solid lock. Give me an Arcana check as well on Sarah. And I'm going to put it this way: Becky cannot act on this information, regardless of basically that I'm asking Sarah to roll an Arcana check. Becky can't say, "Oh, well, she thinks it's an arcane lock." Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But with that roll, you're pretty sure that it looks enchanted. It looks like there's more to it than just a physical lock.
Okay. Then I'm just gonna leave it alone. Float back down, right
Okay.
in front of Norok.
Okay.
For now, I'm leaving it alone.
You guys keep this kind of constant trek going. You've passed the first of the major roads, and you're kind of heading down the slope towards the bay, where the sea, basically where this town is. You can't see the town yet; you're still too far. But basically, you're on this kind of downward slope that leads down towards it. But it's getting late in the afternoon, beginning kind of early evening. Norok, you've traded it back with him a couple of times. Samson says, We're gonna have to set camp at some point, anyways, and then we'll reach the town probably midday tomorrow. I mean, I'm pretty beat, as you guys can imagine. I'm sure you are too, after this kind of long, boring march. I mean, if you guys don't mind, we can set up camp, sooner rather than later. Get a good night's rest in, and then continue on pretty early in the morning. What do you guys say?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
He kind of nods then and stops in place and almost immediately drops this bag, which all three of you hear the kind of jingling inside, and based on the shape of it, it looks like there's got to be big shields or something in there, big circular plates, like shapes in there, made of metal is what it sounds like. But he drops it down, and immediately with that unshouldered, he looks at Artemis, says, I mean, you were carrying all the camping, the supplies and everything in your bag, right? You have those, I hope?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I can sleep on the ground if I need to, but it would be nice to have, some proper furs or something comfortable to sleep on.
Okay, well, I'd pull out the tents, give Sarah hers. I think I finished off mine, but for Norok, it would be putting...
The last two?
the-
You're doing his last?
The last, yeah, I'm doing his last because it's bigger. So his is basically just a tarp at the moment. It's not an actual enclosed tent. Just because time-wise at
Sure.
the moment.
Good
So
enough.
he pulls all these out, and kind of gets to helping setting up the frames and everything for them. The sun's not down yet. It's still, basically it's heading over the bay. It's basically, still a couple hours until the sun's going to be completely down. But he kind of starts a fire. He begins the beginnings of setting up camp. He says, I'll as much help as you guys have been, I'll certainly take the first watch. I mean, you guys, it's up to you on who wants to fill the others. But I mean, if you need me to, I'll stick through all of them. But if you guys don't mind, anyways, we can take turns.
I'll take second watch.
I'll take last because I normally have to take first or last.
Okay.
Before I go to bed, I'm gonna ask him how far he thinks we are from Cadigan.
And he kind of looks over his shoulder down towards the bay. He says, I think that if we get up early, just get a good night's rest in, get up early and start marching, I think we'll probably make our way there maybe in, the early afternoon, probably. Somewhere thereabouts. I haven't had to march like this, this kind of a pace for a while, so, when I was doing it when we were taking the chain north here, that was a little more hectic and we weren't really stopping to rest and everything.
Okay. I'm gonna head off to the little girl's room, and I'm just gonna start heading off into the woods.
Okay. There are enough cops. There's basically, he probably would have, because he suggested it anyways. He probably would have stopped somewhere near, relatively close to a copse of trees anyways. Not necessarily in the woods, but you guys are basically on a big open plain with occasional little circles of trees, small copses of trees. But there is one near enough, sure.
I just want to be far enough away that he can't hear me, and he can't really see me too well.
Okay. With your broom, anyways, I think the speed on it's like 50 feet, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're able to kind of race over to one without much difficulty, while Norok and Arteme and Samson are setting up.
Okay, and I'm just gonna take out the sending stone.
Okay.
and just tell him that we should reach Cadigan by tomorrow afternoon. Everything seems calm so far. Keep you posted.
It takes a minute or so because this is by this time about a minute or so later you hear "copy that" in Pepperjack's voice.
Just head back to camp.
Okay. All right. You guys doing anything for the evening? I mean, the sun's finally starting to go down. You guys have cooked up some of the deer that the venison that Arteme brought back. With whatever else rations and stuff you guys might have. Samson's pretty quiet at this point. Like, he's not really talking a whole lot. He's kind of just sitting there staring at the fire. I mean, he is talking if you guys are talking to him, but otherwise he's not really, he's not appearing to be too talkative beyond just responding to your guys' questions if you're asking him things. But what are you guys doing?
I'm just gonna play my lute a bit.
I would actually ask him what's in the bag.
He looks at you. Okay. He looks up at you and he says, "Oh, well, we're gonna need those things when we find the box." But give me an insight check on Arteme. He kind of looks over at Norak, who's plucking at his lute, though, and just smiles a little bit, like he's appreciating it, appreciating the kind of relaxing music.
All right, when I look over at him, does he seem like he's inebriated still? Or did he come down yet? Not staring at him, just looking at him as I'm playing, kind of, little smile back, like, "Oh yeah, glad you appreciate it." But does he look like he's
well, okay, Arteme and Sarah don't know that, but
yeah, I'm not saying anything out loud to them. I'm just,
Okay. He never. How would I say this? He never acted it at all. He looks it, and he still does.
Yeah.
And he still looks. He doesn't. It hasn't changed. His pupils are still too big, and his eyes are still very red, and that hasn't changed at all. But he was never acting under the influence of anything at all, as far as you could tell. But I mean, you haven't spent a ton of time with him until today. Basically, we marched with him an entire day, and the entire time he seemed like he was fully there mentally. Just physically looks drained and has these red eyes and so on. In fact, even the picture that I gave you guys originally of Samson, I don't know if you guys remember this, but let me share that to you again. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Which, by the way, I think Becky might recognize that. Do you recognize that, Becky? Or Ben, either one of you? Fox won't, but...
Is that from
No.
Dragon Age?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Which actually, so Fox is playing The Witcher 3 now, so there's a few things that you might recognize that thematically, not specific details or anything of that sort, but thematically there's things that you might recognize from, like, for example, the Leshen, that kind of stuff that I take from, which is, I mean, that's kind of how this game works. Everybody, takes from the things they alike. That's just how that's how D&D is built. But anyway,
like
did you
you took the horse?
Yeah,
the talking horse.
That's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't remember which one it was. Maxine, was it?
Yeah.
Anyway, but the time passes, though. I mean, I guess so. That's what he says. Like, are you following up on that question at all, Arteme?
I'm not really sure how to kind of persuade or press because I'm not really good at it at all.
You meaning Fox, or you meaning Arteme?
And Fox too. Like, I'm not really good at that kind of thing.
Well, so generally, the social skills are kind of a tough spot in the way this game works, because generally Your character has stats, and those stats we can use. So I could say, Fox, tell me what it is that Artemis says to try to convince somebody of something, right? Well, the thing is, that then means it's on Fox to do it, not on Artemis. And that's not really, it's not like, Artemis is going to try to jump over a cliff, and I say, Fox, go try to climb that and tell, see if you can physically do it or not. Like, that wouldn't be fair, you know what I mean? So when you have to do it with social skills, it isn't quite the same, so it's a little bit harder to make that translation. So technically, you can do it with just stats. It's just not as fun. I try not to do that. But basically you Fox make the argument, and then we'll use the stats to decide whether or not it's successful.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, certain things, of course, would be outright, would be let's say above or below a certain kind of range of whether or not it would be successful or not. Anyways, like if you try to intimidate somebody and you're tiny and they're huge, then physically trying to intimidate them may not work and would have disadvantage or maybe outright impossible. But, in other social social situations where at least it's possible, then I might give you the roll to at least see if it's successful or not.
Okay.
You can try to convince him.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really sure how, though.
We got to come up with something. If everybody's just sitting there staring at him, it's not going to work. So.
What, a tiny elf staring at you isn't intimidating?
But he's just kind of sitting there staring. He's being pretty quiet. He was pretty quiet even during the march, but most of that was because it seemed like he was focusing, kind of keeping a look around and scouting, make sure that everything was safe. But also when he was carrying the thing, he just didn't have a lot of opportunity to talk. But now that he's just sitting here, kind of staring at the fire, he doesn't seem like he's super talkative. But he is, he's conscious and in the moment. And if you guys are talking to him, he does respond.
Did Seraphina hear Artemis ask that?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, assuming you came back to camp after going over there, right?
Okay.
I mean, if
I
you
just
did.
wasn't sure if this was while I was gone or after I come back.
I mean,
It'd probably been after you came back.
Yeah, the camp, basically, you get back and, they're finishing building the camp and are kind of sitting around the fire at this point. So, as long as you came back within a reasonable amount of time, then yeah, you would have heard that.
Okay, then I'm just going to look at him and be like, well, you say we're going to need this for when we find the box, but forbid anything happens. But if it does, maybe we should know what it is so we know how to use it.
He kind of tilts
Just
his
in
head a
case.
little bit. He says, I mean, I'm not really averse to that. That's a pretty fair estimation there. But the problem is, if something happens to me, you're not going to know how to find the box anyways. So it's really not going to make too much difference. And
Well,
even
no,
if you
I'm
did
just
find the box, even getting it back without me is not going to be exactly easy either.
But it's a box. How hard is it to carry a box?
He kind of chuckles. He says, well, I guess you'll find that out pretty quick. Assuming we're lucky enough to find the ship and then find the box, and it hasn't been tampered with already.
That's rather cryptic.
He says it's not... I think you might be thinking box like, a small thing that you just throw in a bag and just carry it on back. That's not what we're in for. This is going to be a difficult journey getting this thing back. If you just walking here, lugging this bag, I mean, this was tough enough, but getting that box back, that's going to be a pretty Herculean effort.
I'm just going to look at Norak and be like, I think we can manage.
He says, he kind of reaches over and pats the bag. He says, with this thing, sorry, without this thing,
I'm out of ideas.
you can make a persuasion check on that. He's just basically, go ahead and make a persuasion check on Sarah.
Okay.
He says, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you at least as much as I'm allowed, before we can take this thing out. That box, once we find it, is not going to move. In fact, it's probably the only reason, assuming the ship is still above the waves, that box is probably the only thing that's going to keep us safe on the way back. It is... none of you have had any kind of training in the arcane arts, have you? That's him asking. The three of you definitely have not.
Yeah. No.
I mean, he looks at Sarah. He says, "I mean, you have clearly some talent there, but I get the impression that yours is more ingrown and something you were born with and something you trained for. Is that right?"
Yeah.
Hang on one sec here, guys. Shit, where'd my note go for that? Fuck. I made a note. God damn it. I know I have a note on here somewhere, but I can't find it. I wasn't expecting you guys to ask about this just yet, so I have to find my freaking note for it. All right. What he says, so the box is an ark, is what he calls it. Here. And well, technically, what's inside the box. The problem is those things are dangerous at best, and so it's in the box to kind of keep it safe. Without scatter, to keep wards around it, to keep it from being noticed, it will be sought after. And with it being sought after, it's going to be harder and harder for us to keep it safe on our way back here. And since none of us are practiced enough to be able to do that capably, this thing here, and he pats the bag, will keep most of that artifact's radiation from drawing other people to it. That's why it's important that we hurry. We gotta get it.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
Would
Ben and Becky
Serafina know what
no.
that is?
No. Ben and Becky would know. Well, Fox should know, but I haven't finished the friggin' the Vast Erudition. Fox, you remember me talking about the Vast Erudition, right? Do you remember what that is? Obviously, you don't know the specifics, but...
Not entirely. I think I have notes about it, but I don't remember.
So about, let's see, you guys have been going for a little bit. It's about 7.5, maybe 8 months or so before this point in the story. A big thing happened and the moon exploded, remember? Remember me talking about that?
Vaguely, yes, but you said that you'd finish explaining it after the other campaign was done, because if you didn't, that'd be spoilers, so
Correct.
I don't think that was properly explained.
It never was. That campaign ended like 3.5 months ago, and I wrote most of the details of that, but it's too long, and I don't want to give you a book to read, so I have to prune it down to like a more reasonable amount of
A book
words.
is fine. Just send it to me as is, and I'll read it. A book is fine. I'm an avid reader. I don't.
All right, that's fair. Because it's like, I should have given this to you guys a long time ago, but Ben and Becky know what it is because they played through the whole campaign of that. It was called something. Well, they were called different things there because they would be called different things in different cultures, of course. But anyway, what she's describing, yes, Ben and Becky, of course, know what that is. Fox, you will once I give you the notes on the Vesta edition.
Okay.
But basically, there were a bunch of things about 7 months. Well, for 2 years. For a while, let's say, for a span of about 2 years or so, that ended 7 months ago. So basically, call it 3 years ago until 2 years ago, or until a year ago, rather. There were a bunch of these artifacts out in the world that were causing people to try to seek them out. And those artifacts were causing war and a lot of devastation. In fact, a specific one ruined where Artemis' people are from. The Monodoran Isles were completely destroyed by one of those artifacts. Which is where Artemis would have been from originally before coming to the mainland in the Empire. Anyway, they're still physically there, but they were like wiped out. Think of it like the Philippines getting hit by a hurricane all the time, something of that sort, basically, that would have killed a ton of people. But anyway, those things out there in the world caused a lot of damage and a lot of problems, and they, as far as everybody is, as far as the world is concerned, anyways, they were destroyed when the moon was destroyed. So they should all be gone. What he's describing sounds very much like those things, though. So as far as Norok, Artemis, and Sarah would have heard of, that's what he's describing sounds like those things, but maybe on a less, a smaller scale, or maybe you don't know. But basically, it sounds like he's describing those types of artifacts where people would
Okay,
seek them
so
out.
it's something either similar or related to those artifacts.
Yeah.
So it could be a larger artifact, it could be a similar artifact that does something a bit different, but
Yeah.
either way, it's up.
Yep. And that's kind of what he's describing, basically. Is it sounds like this thing is very dangerous. The thing you guys are going to get sounds like it's very dangerous. Specifically, you would need arcane training, or at least basically, if High Mage Scatter was the only one capable of kind of containing it and keeping it safe, and you don't have another High Mage capable of doing that at the moment, then that could be very dangerous to get this thing returned. You don't necessarily know how much, but that's what he's saying, is the thing is in the bag is intended to kind of contain that radiation coming off of it so that it won't be as dangerous.
Okay. So is it the arc we're going to get, or is it the arc in the bag?
The arc is what it's not. It is an arc. What's in the box is sorry. The box itself is an arc. It's one arc. It's not the arc. It's not. There is no the arc. There basically is that's a class of item, essentially. A very powerful magical item. You guys wouldn't have any arcane training, so you wouldn't necessarily know what that is or what that means, but that's how he's described it.
That's in the box we're going to get.
Yeah. What's in the bag, he hasn't told you the name of. There may not even be a name as far as you know. It's just a means of containing the arc or that arc specific one, to keep it from causing problems.
All right. Well, Norak's going to say, if the thing in the bag has to be contained with the chain, I'm assuming that's to keep it in instead of keep people out. Are you sure you can even control the thing that's in the damn bag once we get the item from the box?
To be honest, not entirely. But I mean, it's my job. It's what I was sent to do, so I'm going to have to do it whether I like it or not.
And I guess we're along for the ride already anyway. Just wanted to know.
He says this thing isn't the thing in the bag here. This thing isn't any danger to us, but the arc itself could be, or what's in it anyway could be.
Okay.
Really, I mean, I don't know a whole lot myself. I mean, really, I shouldn't be here. Maybe as an escort, but I should definitely not be the one in charge of trying to carry this thing back. But we're limited for personnel at the moment, and Pepperjack thought I was the best man to handle it, I guess.
Well, if what you have in the bag isn't a danger, then why do you have chains around your bag?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that with you.
Okay.
You can make an insight check on that if you want. It's up to you. All three of you technically can if you want to. You both feel like he's being pretty forthright with that. I mean, he seems like he's following orders. Like, as much as there's a certain sliminess to him, I would say probably Artemis probably the one that gets the most. Yeah, it's about the same anyway. Gets the most. What's the word I'm looking for? The most distrusting feeling from him, with reasons that Norak is aware of. But beyond that, both Sarah and Norak, you guys don't really feel like he's up to too much. He just seems like he's a religious jerk, is what he seems like. But certainly slimy, and you, especially, I would say that, how do I word this? With the events that happened at the battlefield, you guys remember, with Scatter's ghost?
Yeah.
So if that's still top of mind, you guys might be thinking about that as a reason to distrust him, but beyond that, he hasn't given you guys too much reason otherwise. Except for maybe Artemis. But it's, I mean, you guys, if you have more to, talk to him about, by all means. Otherwise, it's, we'll be heading into the nighttime.
I don't think so. So I'll probably head to bed.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Well, I can. Well, I guess I'm not taking a watch, but if somebody wants to take one, I don't care. So otherwise, I'll just head out of it.
Okay. All right, Norak and Sarah knock off. Artemis, you and Sai gonna get some sleep and then, wake up to take third watch?
Yeah, probably. I'd probably just ask Sai to keep a ear out and just in case.
Okay. You guys were probably talking for a little while, having dinner and talking, so it's probably been, it's probably not super late, probably around like 10, 11 during his watch, and Sai doesn't need sleep, so she could stay up, the whole night and watch too. She can't, she's not going to give a proper watch, meaning you guys will still need to normally have watches, but with her kind of covering with Samson is fine, since she doesn't need to sleep anyway. Let's see. Since you guys, I'll just do it this way. Since you guys are all sleeping at this point. There's something that I would normally do, but I don't want to have to pull one of you aside for a bit here. Let's do it this way. Sarah, your sleep is extremely disturbed. You're having awful nightmares the entire time. You probably wake up repeatedly and keep kind of having to kind of snap yourself out of it and then just lay back down. Give me a con save on Sarah.
Are these dreams like I've been having, or
just really disturbing. You're hearing constant whispers. You don't. It's not. These aren't concerns of dogs. Although actually, I would say that even before kind of settling down, that Samson, like he's been looking around a lot, and I would say that with your guys' insight checks and so on, you guys gathered that he's looking to see if that hound might come again. He didn't gather that it was coming after you specifically. You told Pepperjack that, but not Samson. He was not in the tent at the time. Remember?
Yeah.
But so he doesn't know that you were what was drawing the hound, but he's like looking around, and you gather that's probably what he's looking for, is to see if that hound is still around. But anyways, with that, I would say you're able to get enough sleep in that you're not going to have a point of exhaustion, but you are constantly hearing whispers, and you keep waking up and looking around, and you're not seeing that eye. You're not seeing it, but you're like, as soon as when you first wake up and you open your eyes, you're in that kind of foggy space, that shadowy space, and look around, and you kind of have to rub your eyes and shake your head a little bit, and then it kind of fades away. But it keeps happening over and over again throughout the night, probably 4 or 5 times throughout the night. And the whispering is definitely that same voice. You just can't see the eye anymore. Do you realize why that might be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Becky.
no, I purposely grabbed it.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if Sarah would probably put that together as well, but I don't want to spend half an hour going over with just Sarah. So we'll probably get to that later, I guess. But right now, because of a particular thing that both Sarah and Becky don't know yet, you wouldn't be seeing it. You're just hearing it, and then you kind of wake up, shake it off, and go back to sleep again. But Samson's watch seems to go otherwise uneventfully, other than Sarah constantly waking up. But he does basically one of the times that you wake up. He says, "You seem pretty restless there. I mean, if you, not to pry or anything, but is everything okay?"
Just nightmares.
He kind of just nods and looks back at the fire. He says, "Well, I mean, if you don't mind, it's about your turn anyways. If you don't mind me knocking off and get some shut-eye."
It's fine with me.
So he kind of just leans over a little bit. It doesn't, like, he's sitting on furs, ones that Artemade provided anyways, but he just kind of leans over in place, still fully armored. He never took it off, which means he will have exhaustion, by the way, but he's still kind of ready to go in case something were to attack. But speaking of, now that I think about it, does Artemade doff her, because she's wearing leather, right?
Yeah.
So it takes 1 minute to take it off and put it back on. Did she sleep in it, or did she take it off?
Probably just takes it off.
Okay. So the middle of the night then, we're now talking, around midnight or so. Sarah, you're awake. You're not getting any untoward feelings of being watched or anything like that, like you had previously. But while you're sitting there, give me another con save. And you need to beat an 18.
Oh dear lord.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Nope.
So while you're sitting there, you hear very strange kind of melodic sounds, like music almost, but it sounds very natural. and it's very kind of drowse-inducing, like very sleepy, like a lullaby almost. And your eyes begin to get heavy. Your kind of eyelids start to flutter a little bit, and they sink. They're still open enough that you can see, but you're getting very sleepy, and you almost not paralyzed, but basically you feel like you're kind of frozen in place, like you're not really like something's holding you down almost, like weight on your shoulders. But while you're sitting there and kind of staring at the fire, you see out of the corner of your eye, and you can't really turn your head at the moment to move it. You're just so like sleepy and kind of physically stuck in place. You see out of the corner of your left eye, or to your left rather, out of both eyes. But you see this small furry creature, about the size of maybe my dogs, my corgis, right? Fox, you know what a corgi is, right?
Yes.
So corgi size, let's say, but much fluffier, much more dense than that, like a small bear almost, like a little itty bitty bear, comes into view, and you can't turn your head. You keep trying to kind of shake it off and look over there, but you can't physically you can't move, and everybody else is asleep. Arteme kind of in a trance, but this thing kind of wanders in towards the camp, and then you see another one, and it kind of just moves over, and it's just sitting there staring at the fire. And Fox, do me a favor, give me one for Sai as well. Well, you don't have a stats for her. Let me roll it real quick.
Sorry, what am I rolling?
Well, tell you what, her save would be a +1. Roll a d20 for me, Fox.
Okay.
Nope. So she got a 15. So out of your right side of your vision, Sarah, you can see Sai is sitting there, similarly staring at the fire, and you see her nostrils kind of flare a little bit, and she's like kind of trying. You can tell that she wants to look over at this little fuzzy animal that has moved over to the fire, but she can't move. Like she's similarly kind of frozen in place. But this fuzzy little bear thing moves over to it, and you see a second one approaching. And as soon as the second one approaches, the first one that is kind of sitting there in front of the fire, like sitting back on its haunches, like a teddy bear almost, it turns to look towards the first one, and you see its face is bird-like, and it has a hooked little beak on it. Does Becky know what it is she's seeing?
It's fuzzy?
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy bear with a bird face.
Or is it feathery?
Well, the back haunches and everything are furry, but as soon as it turns and looks and you see its face, it has feathers. Basically, its face is feathered with a beak.
I want to say it sounds like Kiri, but I don't think she can do that. So
No, that's a different thing. I'm going to give you guys an image here real quick. I meant to drop it into Fantasy Grounds like I usually do, but I didn't do that, so let me give you the link for...
Oh my god, it's an owlbear.
It's an owlbear.
Yeah. They're two baby owlbears. Fox, that's what it looks like, except babies.
Oh, okay.
Aww.
I just dropped it in Discord. Don't say, aw, that thing is vicious. That thing will rip you apart.
Well, that one looks vicious, but I'm sure the babies are adorable.
A tiny one would look kind of cute in a...
So the two of these, though, the first one kind of turns over and looks at the other one who's approaching, and then the other one comes up and sits next to it, and they're both just sitting next to the fire and like looking in the fire, like they're, the way that an animal might be entranced by looking in a mirror, that kind of thing. They're both just kind of sitting there for a minute while you're still kind of frozen in place, Sarah. And then they both start to get up, and you think they might be, getting ready to leave, but they start kind of lifting their noses up in the air like they're sniffing the air a little bit. And they walk over right in front of Sai, who you can tell is just flipping her shit. Like, Sai is clearly wanting to, like, investigate or whatever, you don't know, but she's clearly, like, very unhappy that she's kind of frozen in there. But you're just so drowsy that you almost don't care. But they go over next to Arteme, and one of them is kind of nuzzling the bag of holding that is sitting on the ground there. And then the other kind of comes up to it, and they're both kind of pulling at it and sniffing at it and start to kind of play with it a little bit. And then the slightly larger of the two, the first one that came up, has hooked a claw around it and is starting to kind of slowly walk away with it, dragging it like, it's not a smooth motion. It's a pull and then stop and then a pull and then a stop, because they're intended to walk on all four paws. So pulling it away is very strange. It's difficult for it to do, but it is pulling the bag of holding away from your camp.
Would I have woken up when this happened? Or how
You're-
long is this into my trance? Because I normally only need 4 hours
Yeah,
for the trance.
this would be you know, it would be coming up near the end of it, I would say, because you're already asleep. You don't have alert or any other feats that would kind of, you know, allow you to automatically get this. So you wouldn't really get the chance to make the save. But I'll go ahead and it's basically you're pretty much gonna have to get a natural 20. But go ahead and make a con save to see if Arteme would have knocked out of this.
Ouch.
Nope. Yeah. So these little owl bears are taking your bag and have taken it away and have pulled it out of the camp completely. And as soon as they are, they head off towards those same trees that Sarah went into earlier. But as soon as they're kind of in the trees and out of view, that kind of drowsy feeling begins to fade. Like it's still there, and you still just feel like you got a rock on your head. But you can kind of just shake it off a little bit and wake yourself up. And Sarah, you are able to move again. What are you doing?
I'm going to. Shit. Well, I'm just gonna yell as loud as I can that owlbears are stealing the bag, and I'm running after them.
Are you hopping on the broom to catch them?
Yep.
All right. So Norok and Arteme, you guys hear Sarah yelling. I would say you probably don't understand what it is she said. You just heard her yelling. Samson is immediately kind of shaken awake and kind of steps up to his feet. Looks very groggy, certainly. Norok and Arteme, you guys kind of open your eyes and look out, and you see Sarah zipping off on the broom towards the copse of trees. What are you guys doing?
I'll go too. When she's speeding off.
Okay.
Pick up my Warmatic and run off, and my Sentinel Buckler. Run off.
Okay. All right. If you're throwing those on, give me some initiative.
Oh, come on. Really?
Ben, don't you have advantage on yours because of the shield?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask that, but I think so.
I think you do.
Yeah.
That was a total of 5 for Sai. Oh, that's a bit loud.
Good thing.
Yeah, you're up to 3. Okay. Let me get one for Samson here. I want to talk to Samson. That's what, yeah. Alright. Whoops. Alright. Sarah, you rush off into the trees, and the... actually, I'll share that to you in a second. You go sailing off between the trees, and you have to kind of dive around one and then around the next, and you see them, and they kind of, both of them kind of stop and look up at you, and they look very small and very cute and very scared, with the bag still between their paws. But as soon as you go sailing in over them, you're within reach, I guess. What are you doing? Because you yelled and then rushed after them.
I'm casting darkness on the bag
Okay.
with a sorcery point, so I can still see.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and mark it off.
What's that, level 2?
The only map I have. Tell you what. So the only map I have that's going to be suitable for this is there's a bridge in it. So we're just going to say that you guys are basic. We'll say that this is properly representative, and that I just hadn't mentioned it previously. Everybody have the map?
Yep.
Yeah.
Loading.
Right.
Okay, it's loaded.
Okay. For simplicity's sake, that we'll say that you guys, the copse of trees is actually much closer than. That's still a little bit loud. Hang on. All right, Sarah, you ran off into the trees up here. And Arteme, you were still in camp. Oh, let's trade those actually, because Norok would have been at the bigger one. And Samson at camp. He didn't have a tent, so he's just by the fire. And Sai with Arteme. There you go. All right. So you rush off into the trees, though, and see them, and you throw darkness up. I would say that you were able to do that basically before anything else begins. What's Norok doing? Probably a little bit further northeast, but...
I am going to... And Where are the little guys?
Up where Sarah is in the northeast.
Ah, okay.
Well, you can't see
So,
them. You don't even know what's going on. You just heard Sarah shout something and then rush off into the trees.
Okay. Then I am going to, since I still don't know exactly what's going on, get a little closer and say, hey, what's going on? I'm talking to you, babe. Because I don't know exactly what's going on. I just saw you run off, and so you stopped. So.
Well, you did see, as soon as you kind of come around the tent and look out that way, a bubble appears very small and then grows very large until it basically fills all of it, and you can't see her and you can't see anything in there anymore. The trees have disappeared into a big bubble of darkness.
Then I'm going to, wherever it is, I'm going to stop before, right before I get to it, and then yell, because I did see her there before the bubble
you saw it
I saw her go that way.
Yeah, exactly. You saw the bubble appear and then kind of fill the whole area. What's the radius on that, Becky?
15 feet, I think. Let me see. 15-foot radius sphere.
Okay. There. So that red circle, everything in that, you saw her disappear, and basically you just see a big sphere of black in front of you. It's darker than the surrounding area.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop right there and be like, hey, Seraphina, what the hell's going on?
Some baby owlbear stole our shit. Trying to get it back, so just hang on.
What? Seriously? All right, fine. So I'm going to just scan the area and look around and see if I see anything else moving.
Okay. Make a perception check on Norok.
Okay.
You sure do. You see something very large, very bear-shaped and very large and angry. There's kind of a roaring sound coming from, if you were still looking north anyways, from the outside of this field there. And there's another roar off to the east, and you can't see anything, you just hear it.
Okay. Then I'm going to yell out, Mama's coming. So.
Yep, that's why I threw up darkness, so she can't see shit.
Okay. And then I'm guessing that one came in, so do I still have an action, or was that my action before?
I would say no. You saw that as you were rushing in anyways. You saw the shadow as she's saying that there's owlbear babies. Norok probably is the only one that doesn't know what an owlbear is, but, I mean, the description enough when she yelled that, and you see, sure enough, there's a bear that looks like it has an owl face off to the side.
Well, yeah, the word bear would have triggered my,
Yeah, exactly.
So then I'm going to move up this way and then just ready my action in case it runs past me close enough into that circle.
Okay.
Assuming, because I don't know exactly where Sarah is, but I'm assuming she must not have been far away from me. So,
yeah.
If it gets inside that circle, basically, I'm going to smash on it. Otherwise, I'm going to ready my action.
It looks aggressive. It looks angry and aggressive. So, but it's up to you on, if that's, are you ending it there then? That's it?
Yeah, because, again, I don't know exactly what's going on.
Sure.
Just to be safe. So.
Okay. Artemis' turn.
Okay, so they're in that area of darkness?
Well, Artemis doesn't know. I'll tell what has happened so far. That Sarah knows most of this. Fox does not. Artemis does not, rather. There were two babies that stole the bag and ran off into the woods, and then to where their mom and dad are, basically. And their mom and dad are angry and coming at Sarah now because Sarah yelled and is chasing after the babies.
Okay. I guess I'll go over here. And I'll cast Spike Growth in the area.
Okay. Sarah is floating, so she wouldn't be hurt by that. What's the radius on it again?
20-foot radius.
All right. That is going to cover a huge area. Let me get the token the right size here real quick. That is... oh, almost. There we go. That's 20. So,
Okay.
are you? Well, you can't see into the area of darkness, so you can cast it in kind of that general area. Is that where you're trying to put it? Basically, is to kind of. Do you have to see the location? Now that I think about it. Let me look at the spell real quick here.
It's a concentration spell, but doesn't say it has to be invisible.
Yeah, it just says point within range, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then you can cast it there. Since you don't have to see it, then you could just say, 20 feet in this direction, 30 feet in this direction, or whatever, and fill it in, so. Okay. Go ahead and mark off your spell slot. And put your concentration effect up.
Wait, did that work? Or was it the wrong thing?
Oh,
yeah, that was the wrong thing.
That's if they don't see it when it goes up or something, isn't it?
Yeah, instead of dragging
one.
effect, I dragged cat.
Gotcha. Yeah, to recognize it as hazardous terrain before entering it. The male was already partially in it. You guys heard the roar of the female who was off to the east somewhere. You just can't quite see her yet. All right, that it for your turn?
Yep.
Okay, it is Samson's turn. He's still, groggy and in his gear. Actually, well, he wouldn't have the exhaustion until the morning time because he hasn't finished yet, so... 10, 15, 20, 25. He comes kind of shouldering past, not trying to be rude, but he basically pushes you out of the way to get up by Norok. And he can't quite make it as far as, but he sees the owlbear kind of rushing in towards this circle. There is a howl, like a frustrated howl, coming from inside the darkness sphere, and you guys hear a scurrying sound of leaves and like underbrush being pushed through, and then there's a sound of scraping leather, and that's it. It's Sarah's turn.
Okay. How far away can I get to them?
You
yeah,
can
I've got 50
actually,
feet.
so yeah, you can actually see the two. Here, let me just put a token on here so that you can see where the babies are. I'm gonna go ahead and put the tokens on there anyways, so you guys can all see it. But just remember that Norok and Arteme cannot see the female in there. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You guys can't see inside of that field. But
Yeah.
the babies, I'm just gonna use small ones to represent them. Are in here. And they're like screeching very angrily at you because you kind of went sailing in with the broom and almost caught them before that flew up. But they're basically there, and then the parents are looking very angry. So what are you doing?
Right, so I'm just gonna fly up to them and try to take the bag back.
Okay. One of them has its claws wrapped around the loops of the bag, like the purse. What's are purse strings? Or not purse strings? What you know what I'm talking? The purse that the handle.
The drawstring.
It's not a drawstring, but the thing that goes over the shoulder straps, like the shoulder straps.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, those. He's got his claws wrapped around that. Go ahead and give me it'd kind of be a strength check because you got to yank it out of his hands, and he's pretty they're pretty strong even though they're little. So give me a strength check of trying to grab it and yank it away from him.
Come on. No.
I mean, it's contested, so let me have his roll. No, he there's no chance. Like you pull that and you aren't even able to get it slightly. Like he's still holding onto it, and he just opens his beak and just screeches at you right in front of you. And Mama looks very angry, thinking you're attacking the babies.
But she can't see in the darkness.
Oh shit! Well, she's still okay. She hears her baby squealing, yes, and then is freaking out by that. So. Yeah, they can't even see you beyond just feeling you yanking on the bag and trying to pull it away. They're very scared animals at the moment, it seems like. Scared and angry.
Right. Let's see, that was... How much movement was that? 5, 10, 15?
Yeah, I think it was about 15.
30, 35. I'm just going to scooch behind them.
Okay.
And... yeah, that's going to be my turn. I'm just going to keep trying to get the bag from them, try to stay out of the mama's reach.
Okay. What's Sai doing?
She's gonna try and distract this one a bit.
Okay. She rushes around the kind of cliffside there. You guys are on top of a cliff, by the way. This is what I was saying. Like, I forgot to describe this map because I thought I had my other camp map in here. Ben's seen the other one, but anyways, another kind of a common camp map. But you guys are near the top of a little cliff here with that bridge that crosses. So you're not at the bottom, you're at the top. So if you were to fall off that could hurt. But she kind of rushes over towards the ankles of this owlbear, who is kind of beginning to stand up on its back legs to kind of rake its claws at this field of darkness in front of it. Go ahead and drop the distract. Oh, you did. Okay. All right. Then it is the male's turn, and it's kind of just bashing its claws into this field of darkness and just passing right through. It sees this as it's some kind of a wall, like a barrier, like a physical barrier. And it's kind of wailing at it, and then falls forward with the momentum of it kind of carrying it forward, and is kind of falls into the field slightly. It probably wouldn't move any further into it, but it did move. We'll call it 2. Fox, if you want to roll 2 of the spike growths against the owlbear, the male.
Can I do my ready action since you went inside the thing?
Go ahead, G.
Okay.
Fox,
Then-
you got those rolls?
Yeah, try.
There you go.
So since he just stepped inside the thing, but since I technically can't see him, I'm going to throw Vulcan at him. Do I have disadvantage since I technically can't see him now?
Well,
I mean, obviously he probably didn't get very far, but still.
I took the trigger as being as soon as he starts to move into the field, essentially. So,
yeah, as soon as he gets into the field.
Yeah, you'd still see like his rump basically, because he fell forward, and he's a big
Okay.
creature. So I mean, you'd still see like his hindquarters.
Okay.
Good thing you'd attuned it too, by the way, because you wouldn't have been. If the throw thing wouldn't work, it wouldn't come back. It would have just thrown if you hadn't attuned it.
Yeah.
That hits.
Sweet.
God, that modifier is insane.
Yeah, it is.
I guess
That's
at
nice.
level 5. I mean, it's 3 more than what it would otherwise be, but it's a pretty important magic weapon. So.
Yeah, it's good.
So you just huck it as hard as you can, and it goes end over end, and it clips straight into its back end. And without you even really having to think about it, you kind of just throw your hand up, and it comes spinning back at like rewinding time almost until it snaps back into your hand with kind of a meaty thud. It is kind of flinging on its way back, by the way, with each end over end as it's reversing. It's just throwing out a spiral of bloody spurts that just kind of splatter all over the place in this long line as it kind of connects back to your hand. And then the owlbear kind of disappears into the field. Is that it for your turn?
And how? Yeah, and well, that was just my ready
that was
action.
right,
How quickly does it come back at me? Roughly, what's the speed that is like a fastball, like a slower pitch?
It's
roughly what's
about
the speed of looking at
it's
it?
about the same that you threw it at.
Okay.
In that basically you threw it within the span of a matter of a second, less than a second it reaches its target, and then it comes back at almost that same pace. I mean, miles per hour would probably be, if a good fastball, let's say, around the 90 miles per hour range. I hate baseball, but let's say it's usually 90, 95, somewhere right. Is that right?
I think so.
I mean, a 90 mile per hour for a fastball is supposed to be, as I understand it, pretty respectable for at least those that respect baseball. But anyways, it probably comes back, between 70 to 90, somewhere in that range. Fast enough that if something was in that range, it's going to hurt if it hits it.
That's what my question. That's what I was kind of trying to assess. Is could it work on the negative as well?
Yeah. I put it into the description for it. In fact, there's a specific thing. If you were to intentionally throw it or tell it to stay somewhere and then called it back to you, it would hurt everything on its path back as well.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
I was just kind of testing that. Like Norok was kind of testing that. Like, oh, this is first time throwing it. So
yeah,
I'm just getting some more information. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can boomerang the shit out of it. That's how it's intended to work too. So it does mean that if you do throw it, you don't get multiple attacks. So there's the downside. There's the trade-off there. Whereas if you're swinging at melee, you get your full, number of attacks. But anyway.
Oh, should I just roll a d4 for the lightning damage? Does it count?
Yeah, go ahead and
Okay.
you actually, I think I put it in there for you, didn't I? Didn't I put it in
Oh,
your
did
items?
already?
I thought I had. I guess I didn't. Okay.
Okay.
All right. An extra
Like a
2.
little trigger for it. But
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you can just hit the little button, so that it would automatically apply it.
Sweet.
All right. And it is now inside the Sarah. You see the male kind of fall into the slightly larger of the two, fall into the darkness, and it's like looking at swinging its head left and right like a bear, and looks very confused and very angry, and it's kind of howling and just like pawing at the ground like it can't figure out, it doesn't understand what's happening. All right, your actual turn, Norok.
Sweet.
You can't see anything. You see a big field of darkness, and then the ground is all spiky in front of you, where the kind of underbrush has almost like pine needles have kind of sharpened up and are holding up into the air in front of you.
Okay, then I am going to probably just move up over here to the side, like not inside of it, and just again, just this time I'll just wait and see if I hear anything going on in there.
To stand where you are, that's a cliff, so you'd have to be right here, which means you'd have to step into the spikes a little bit, which is fine if you choose to do it. It's 2d4, is that right, Fox?
Yes.
So you would take a little bit of damage if you stepped into it.
Okay, then actually I will just...
It's 2d4 for every 5 feet you travel into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Sarah's
Then
floating, so go ahead.
What I'm going to do is, since I did hear, and I don't know that it's inside the darkness, I heard another screech come from the east, so I'm going to cut the baby in half and just wait right here, because I can't really see what's going on in there, so I don't want to go running in there with the spike, so I'm going to just...
Well, you're in the darkness where you are right now. There's two different circles there. The red circle's the darkness, and the spikes are the other one. So, but you could step into it and then step back out.
Darkness and then, okay. So I'll just stay on the edge right there, and then I know that stuff's going crazy, so I'm going to rage, and that's going to be it.
Okay. Remember, if you go an entire turn where you don't take damage or you don't hit something, then you would lose the rage. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
You can hit yourself, and it still kind of counts. It's kind of a cheating way, but you could just punch yourself in the jaw and keep your rage going if you needed to.
Sweet. Because I already said I was going to do it, so I can't take it back, so I'm going to rage.
It's fine. Just, I mean, you're presumably going to get long rest anyway, so you'd have your rage back, so it's not going to hurt too much.
Yeah.
All right, Artemis' turn.
Okay, I'm gonna hit this with the green braided...
Hit what?
The male.
You can't see him.
Right.
Yeah, you see a big sphere of darkness in front of you, that's it. Now, you know, so here's how that works. If you can't see a target, you can still try to hit it as long as you have a general idea where it is. Like, say something's invisible, you can still try to hit it, you just have disadvantage.
Right?
What's that?
I'd seen it move into it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a general idea where it is, but you don't know whether it's standing or whether it's low to the ground and so on. So basically, you can still swing to the area that you think it is. You just have disadvantage on the swing. That's all.
Okay.
So go ahead and make your attack with disadvantage, and that would potentially feed your whip. So if your whip was otherwise going to try to bite you in the middle of the night. A 10, I don't think that's going to hit. Its AC is 13. No, it doesn't hit. So you feel it kind of snap through the air there, but it doesn't feel like it connected with anything. It just comes back.
Okay.
Any bonus actions? You're just hearing kind of angry screeches coming from inside of it, and like the rustling of leather, which sounds like your bag. It sounds like the bag you've been carrying over your shoulder for a while, ever since Ozzy gave it to you.
Yeah, there's currently not much I could do, though. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. Samson, standing outside, has his greatsword over his shoulder and just kind of standing there confused. He kind of looks back at you and looks like he doesn't really know what to do, like he's kind of at a loss for options. He shouts, "Sarah, are you okay in there?"
I'm staying completely silent, seeing how close I am to the female.
Okay. That's probably a good idea, especially because it is now her turn, and she can't see anything. She just heard her babies, so you hear... Well, actually, you can see her. She stomps in towards where the babies are, and is like... You see her kind of just sweeping his wide, like clawed arms, but she's holding her arms forward, like she's trying to throw her arms around the babies to grab the babies. Not to claw at them, but basically sweeping her arms almost like a clawed attack to try to grab them. So she reaches down to grab the first one, the one that is not holding the bag, and is kind of picked it up and is starting to reach down to grab the second. Did you let go? You tried to pull the bag and then it didn't succeed. And did you let go then, or did you still hold on to the bag?
I'm still holding on to the bag.
Okay, all right. So she grabs the second baby, and you feel it yank as she's trying to pull it away. She can't see you, but she can probably smell you at this point, and is trying to pull the baby away from you. But with you holding the bag, give me a strength save.
This is not my good. That's not too bad.
All right, so you're trying to hold on to the broom with one hand and yank on the bag with the other, and she's pulling the baby. So basically, you're like tug of war with the bag being the rope and the baby on the other side of this. But you're able to kind of still keep your hand onto this. Shit. For the sake of simplicity, because I screwed all this up. Tell me if this is maybe what Sarah would do, maybe. But the only hand she could potentially use to try to grab this, really, the only one with any strength to it, would be her left hand, and then holding the broom with the mage hand.
I would be... Yeah, I don't know how well I would be able to hold on with the mage hand, but I would be squeezing onto the broom with my legs as hard as I can.
Okay. With any further checks, because I'm not going to impose disadvantage on something that I already, because that was my mess up. But any further ones, you're going to have disadvantage on that for sure. Of just trying to stay
I might not
on
need it
there.
after this.
All right, but she's grabbed both babies and is basically about to pull away from them, which is going to be disastrous for you. Especially if you get yanked off of that, you're going to land into the spike growth as well. All right, your turn.
Okay. 2 quick questions before I do this.
Mm-hmm.
You said he's holding on to the strap, right?
Yeah. Well, he's got a claw around the bag itself, and you're pulling the strap away.
Oh, I thought you said he was holding on to the strap.
He pulled the strap to pull it away from camp, but when you tried to grab it from him, you pulled the strap, and now what he's still held on to is basically his claws around the head of the bag. You pulled the slack. You pulled the slack of it away, and that's what you're holding on to.
Shit, there goes my plan. Damn it. I was just gonna cut the strap and take the bag and run.
I mean, you could still try. He just has basically, he doesn't have it like under an arm. It's basically he's got claws around the top of the bag. So if you cut the strap and pulled it from the other side, you might be able to get it away, maybe.
Oh god, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to anyways. I'm going to hold on to the bag as hard as I can, and since I can't use my dagger with my other hand, I'm going to use my shadow knife.
Are you gonna stab a baby? Is Sarah gonna stab a baby?
You're worse than Navarra.
Yeah, Navarra killed kids too.
Hey, they were not real kids.
Uh-huh.
Well, I
And
killed
she's
your
not
sister,
gonna.
so.
She's not gonna stab. She's going to slice across the top of his hand just to get him to let go.
Okay. All right, go ahead and mark off your spell slot and make an attack roll. Make it against. You know what? Just make an attack roll with no target, because the AC is going to be quite a bit lower.
Okay.
Their fur isn't as thick.
Just use the attack on shadow knife.
Yeah,
The attack button.
it'll still roll. So, it's a good roll. You kind of just sail it across the top with like a underhanded grip, basically across the top of where its feathery claws are, and it immediately just splits right through. You see a small splatter of blood, and it screeches. Let me see. It would probably be what kind of a save? Maybe. Yeah, that'll do. You rolled a 7, so the claws like immediately with the screech like come lifting off of it and flinging it up. In fact, actually, you probably get a little blood splatter yourself. The bag is freed. With your other hand, you were still kind of yanking away anyways. You're able to kind of pull it into your own grip. But in hearing the baby screech, the mom is immediately enraged and is like you feel her moving your direction. She's holding both babies still, but she's she looks very angry. What are you doing?
Hang on. 45, 50.
You're going to incur an
Okay.
opportunity attack, so keep that in mind.
From her?
Yep.
Am I in her melee?
Yeah, there's 5 feet between them. See the
Yeah.
well, if you mouse over her, you guys see that? I think you guys can see the red square, right? Around the two bigger
Yeah.
Yeah,
ones.
but there's no distance then.
Yeah. I can see the red squares, but I'm not in the red square.
No, you don't have to be in it. You have to be within 5 feet of the edge of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I'll take it anyways. 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and I make it there, and the dark circle is moving with me because it's on the bag.
That's true. Yeah. All right. So that means that they're no longer in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
that's may
we
not be
all
good
are.
for you. Okay. All right. Let me fix this real quick.
So they can no longer see anyone within a 15-foot radius around me.
Which you have got everybody except for Sai. So Sai is fucked.
And I'm just going to tell them all to be quiet and don't make any noise.
All right. All right. Let's see. For she would have clawed, so let's try that there. Which she missed. She only got an 11.
Ooh, ooh.
So she, I mean, I didn't even roll disadvantage. That would have been disadvantage anyways, and I forgot to roll that way. So
It's fine, because I forgot to put mage armor up, so that's good.
so you now having the bag, you come sailing through. Arteme, Samson, and Norok. You guys see this dark sphere just roll out in front of you and kind of envelop you, and you can no longer see. You're in perfect darkness. Sai is still outside. Arteme, if you chose to, you could kind of snap to use her vision. You might fall over, but she's still outside. What is she doing?
She'd probably kind of hightail it into the darkness.
Okay. She can't see in the dark, but she can smell you, like being very
Yeah,
keen
so
to you
she'd
anyway. She
probably
could just run.
hightail it.
Okay, towards you. All right.
Yeah.
The male is just, you know what? I'd say that he's still probably just barely within the radius of it, and is rushing towards the sound of this kind of the air disturbance of you kind of sailing through it, especially because you were yelling while you were doing it anyways. It's going to rush that direction, probably not perfectly. So let's we'll give him a D4 chance for be
How
south
much
anyways.
does he move?
Well, you can't see him. You just hear the kind of stomp of him kind of rushing through.
No, but
as
how
far as the
many-
rolls, yeah, he just went south and is kind of swinging wildly anyways. It would be 10 feet, so two rolls of it on the male. And he's going to try to swing basically in the general area that he heard the sound coming from, which will be a disadvantage. He actually has multi-attack anyways, but it'll be disadvantage. Which hits for... Oh!
Oh, shit.
That is bad news. So this very angry owlbear comes charging through. Again, all of you except for Sarah just hear kind of stomp, and then slash. And there's a scream of pain, and the globe of darkness disappears. And then you immediately, of course, can see the source of the angry stomps is the male that has just slashed at poor Sarah, who is riding on her broom and just got smacked very angrily by this owlbear. And is then going to take a beaked bite, trying to grab it, nip at Sarah's heels, which hits for another 7 damage. That's pretty heavy hits already on Sarah. 19 hit points left. That's it for its turn. Norok's turn.
Alright. I am going to...
That was still a pretty clutch move with the darkness, though. That would have been a lot harder otherwise. That's a tent G.
Oh,
I guess you could stomp
Alright,
the tent
okay.
down. You're big enough that you could just push the frame out of the way. It would just take your item interaction, which is essentially free anyway.
okay.
Wait,
Then
if
I will
I
just-
can move through his space, can he just step over me?
Especially not with you flying.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
okay.
right. Never mind.
Yeah.
Then even if it takes extra movement, like difficult terrain, I'll just try to get around without like actually breaking the tent, just moving it. Or
I mean, you could push it down without
breaking.
breaking. The frame is essentially just
Yeah.
wood pieces anyways, so you could push it down, but it'd be difficult terrain for that. So that's you've used 20 feet of movement to get where you are.
Okay.
If you moved here.
Yeah. All right, that'll work. And now, just to be safe, since the darkness is gone. Hang on. Just in case, since poor Sarah's already been beat up.
Hey, I was trying not to kill some baby owlbears.
Yeah, I know.
I was hoping
It was good, but
the 10 minutes of the darkness spell, they just give up and leave.
Instead, Norak just wants to leave these poor baby owl bears fatherless.
Well, we're just supposed to let them kill us?
That's up to you guys. These aren't my problems. You're discussing these like these are my issues.
Okay.
These are yours to deal with, not mine.
Owl bears are gonna grow up and be in gangs and sell drugs and stuff. It'd be terrible.
And it hits.
Did that hit you?
Yeah, that hits.
Okay.
You know what? Sarah tried to be a better druid than I was, so she's not even a druid.
And I might as well do that too.
Yeah,
Hey, if you want to
Nagara-
get right down to it, the baby owls should never have stolen our bag.
Yeah, that's why they're going to grow up and join gangs, because they're obviously little thieves.
They're already on a bad path.
Yeah, they would be trying to steal 40s out of a 7-Eleven, you know it. That's a good hit. God damn, plus 18, that's fucking crazy.
Did the
Your actual
Great
dice
Weapon
was only
and
6.
Tribal Fury, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you did it right.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay.
You second attack?
Yeah.
Oh, you actually get 3 now. Well, I mean, if you're because you're doing your
Yeah.
frenzy, so. Which, keep in mind, guys, you guys will have level 6 coming in probably, depending on how quickly you guys get through some stuff, it'll probably be like 2 or 3 more sessions.
Sweet. All right.
That hits.
Okay. I mean, I don't have to choose anything for mine, but it's still fun to get new shit, though.
I don't know that I choose anything for mine. I know I get my dog finally.
I think Arteme gets new
See ya.
spells, and I think that's it. So you, was that only 2 swings, G?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think I can do a bonus on that. I can't see them. Yeah. So I'll just probably call it good, because if the mom don't come out.
You can see the mom now. The darkness is gone. She's just inside
Yeah.
the.
But I'm gonna wait in case she doesn't attack. So.
Okay. But you cleave this down through the top of it, like where a neck would be. This thing just doesn't really look like it has much of one. And yank it out. And as soon as you yank it, there's just a blood spray when you pull the axe free. That kind of flings across this, but there's still screeching coming from the mom and the babies. But she looks like she's moving away, not towards you guys now. Artemis' turn. You've just seen the male owlbear get pretty badly cleaved and fall, not moving on the ground. It's unconscious, not dead.
I'll hold off then.
Okay.
I'll ready my like braided whip, so if the female attacks, I'll be ready to like attack her, but or if she charges or tries to attack Norak and Sarah again.
Okay.
And then for my bonus, I'll pull up a healing spirit.
Okay.
And I'm putting it right near Sarah.
All right. I'll drop it on there. That it for your turn?
Yep.
All right. Samson's still groggily kind of standing there. He says, is she, and he's just kind of looking at her. She does, the female is starting to kind of pull away, but he's not, like he's moving in now that he can see it a little bit. He's just trying not to step onto the ground, onto the spike growth. But the female is like trying to run, it looks like. And it is her turn. She will use her full movement, which is 40 feet plus her action to dash, carrying both of them. She basically, during this, you guys are seeing this happen, of course, so you can react during the same 6 seconds. But she is rushing away. She is 80 feet in the distance.
Are the kids up in the air, or are they like in her arms?
She's running like, have you ever seen a polar bear stand on 2 feet? Or a bear of any kind? Like stand on its back legs?
No.
They do it
Only
sometimes
in movies,
when
but
they're like fucking Jungle Book or something, like cartoon ones. But yeah, basically bears, when they're, if they're trying to run, they can run on 2 feet. They just look really awkward and funny doing it. Owl bears are actually they're supposed to be able to walk on 2 feet anyways. They look bipedal and dumb, but anyway.
Okay, so does she have the kids like in her arms?
One under
or are
each,
they
yeah,
still
like basically in her
under
arms,
each?
like one under
Okay.
each.
So she would
her
be the only
arms
one
are,
that would get hit by the spike growth then.
yeah, as she's
She
rushing
traversed.
through it. Yeah.
Okay, so she traversed how much of it?
The rest of the distance, which is about 15 feet, so go ahead and roll it 3 times on her.
that 2?
That was
That's
2.
right.
And there's a third, which, as she, she's still screeching as she's stomping through it, you know, clearly pained by it as she makes her way out of it. She's pretty bleeding, like leaving a pretty hefty blood trail out of the growth, but makes it out to the end of it and is continuing on her way. Just rushing out through the trees. What's Sarah doing?
We do have the bag back, right?
Yeah, Sarah has it in her hands.
Yeah, I'm just gonna yell at Samson to just let her go. We got our stuff back.
Yeah.
Okay. You do have a owlbear, you know, a unconscious but bleeding out owlbear next to your camp as well. So, yeah, you did start your turn in it. So Fox just had the healing spirit give you some points back. What are you guys doing?
I'm gonna release my spike.
Okay. Oh yeah, you would have had to anyways to put.
I-
That would have been on your turn. She wouldn't have had those spike growth anyways because you put up healing spirit instead, which would have taken your concentration on your turn, Fox. So she wouldn't have had that, but that's okay. She just basically she was still running off anyways. So, what were you gonna say, G?
Can I use any you know, extra scraps of cloth or bandages or anything and try to stabilize the owlbear? If that's possible, or
That
if
would
it's
be
too
a
far gone.
very well. I mean, you, I guess there's two things here. One, that would be a very odd kind of a medicine check because you're trying to help. You know, yeah. If you know what, Norik would be familiar enough with bear anatomy to probably have an idea of how to do this effectively. Although the feathers around the head would be different. But anyway, I mean, bandaging something isn't that different from one animal to the next. So I would say you could do it with a disadvantaged medicine check. Your rage would be falling shortly anyway, so you could have disadvantage from that, but it's not going to be stackable.
Okay.
But go ahead and put on your waning frenzy.
Okay.
You rolled a 6, not real good.
Yeah.
You try, and I mean as best as you can to get this thing bandaged up. You can't like it's still bleeding through. It doesn't really seem like it's helping much. There's basically kind of this delineation where there's fur and then feathers growing up out through the fur, and it's kind of hard to get any kind of anything to stick to that. So you're struggling with getting anything in there to actually patch it up. But while you're doing it, Samson is giving you like just an incredulous look. He says, "What are you doing? If you fix this thing up, it's just going to attack us and tear our camp apart."
I don't think it's going to be moving much for the next day or two, and when it does, it's just going to go try to find its den anyway. So
My ring of healing surges wouldn't work on an owlbear, would it?
I mean, it would work for healing any creature. It doesn't have to be a player. Any NPC is going to work the same way. But while you're kind of thinking over that, I mean, Samson looks up at Norak and he says, "I mean, if you really want me to, I can pick it up. It'll be fine. He's not so far gone that I can't wake him back up. But he's going to be angry."
Well, I think if we all just back really far away, which if you don't have range, I can 60 feet.
you can use the broom. He's not as heavy as me. He can get away on the broom fast if he needs to.
He's in full armor. He'd have to take it. Oh no, he's not. Never mind. He woke up in the middle of the night. Never mind. He's not in his armor.
So yeah, he's a human. So.
Sarah just glares at Norog like, I ain't giving him my fucking broom.
Fine, whatever. Suggestion.
I will use my ring of healing surges before I hand him my broom.
He says, "I mean, I'll do it if you want, but I mean, let me get my armor on first, because if it gets angry and comes at us, I want to be, ready."
All right.
So he kind of stomps back into camp, not angry.
Or I could
awake.
just heal with my healing spirit once Sarah's healed.
Oh yeah, we can move away.
Yeah, he says. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fine, but if you don't mind, let me get prepared just in case. I don't want that, one of those claws taking my neck out. It takes
Then I
10
will.
minutes to put on heavy armor, by the way. So
He's probably going to bleed out by then.
not my
Just
problem.
saying.
Again, this is your guys' problems to deal with, not mine.
Right,
I'll
well,
stand
in
over
that
here.
case, I'm
We'll
going
just move back and just do it.
I say I'm going to move 60 feet away, and I'm just going to use my ring of healing surges. I'm not going to wait for him.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, Fox, you probably had enough time while you guys were discussing this to heal her up the whole way. Did you roll some on the bear on purpose?
Yeah, I did say I'd put a bit on the bear.
That's
Yeah.
fair. All right, so
Just to keep him from
Samson
bleeding out.
was in camp and pulling on his armor, and you move your spirit over to the owlbear, who, as these wounds are beginning to close. Wait, okay, I was going to say is Sai still over there because she'd be a real quick snack.
Yeah, no, I moved away too.
Let me get the female off here too, and the babies. Let's see. You see the kind of avian eyes kind of open and flutter, and there's this like very angry screech as it kind of lifts itself up. Looks very groggy, very pained still. You just right click a whole bunch, Fox.
Yeah, because clicking one at a time is getting tedious.
Yeah. It would have burned out eventually, anyways, because you probably did 4 or 5 on it, but it doesn't matter. It's not, it still would have been enough to get it conscious, which is all that matters for it to wake up. But it wakes up and looks in your direction, all of the group of you where the fire is. Let's see. Initially it would still not know. It's just an animal, and it basically was in the middle of a fight and got knocked out, and would immediately still be angry. Like, wouldn't know not to be. Doesn't have any reason not to be. Your healing spirit is off. Cool. That would have faded by this time, anyways. Samson's still getting his armor on. Around. Go ahead.
The second he steps towards us, I'm throwing up darkness around us.
Okay. He does. I would say. Let's see. Yeah, there's really. I don't think it would really have any chance to not be angry. Like it was in the middle of a fight and then just got knocked out. So he does step forward. I would say that just a ready to action. You throw darkness back up again, but you're putting it around you.
Yeah.
What's the?
So 15-foot radius around me.
Yeah, but like just are you the thing that you're casting it on yourself? Because nobody else would be able to see around you either.
No, that's
okay.
Fine. I'm just trying to make it so that way he can't see us.
Okay. All right. He then kind of rushes, because it's his turn, but because you guys were kind of waiting him out, he rushes towards the edge of it again and is still screeching and just kind of standing in place on its back legs and kind of clawing at the field. It fell into it the first time, so this time it's balancing himself and it's kind of just standing there swinging at the field. That's how he's going to spend his turn. What's Nork doing?
Alright, I'm going to just move this way and first I'm just going to tap them both so that way they understand that I'm just moving the other way. Like, hoping they understand what I'm doing.
Okay.
I just kind of... and not just at the edge of it.
Did you make
still
yourself...
not visible yet.
Did you make yourself smaller? Let's see.
I might have on accident.
Yeah. I usually... Either that or I didn't make your token bigger. One of the two. Alright. Make a... Well, were you trying to be quiet with your movement?
Yeah.
Make a stealth check on Norok. And you're at disadvantage because of the waning frenzy already.
Doesn't that cloak I'm wearing give me advantage on stealth checks or something? The one
You're...
that talks?
Didn't you give that
Or
to...
did I even put it back on? No, I didn't put it back on yet, did I?
I thought you gave that to Fox anyways, didn't you?
Maybe I did.
You have the buckler, the ring, and
yeah,
Vulcan.
it's not in
That's
my
it.
thing, so I must have.
I think Fox is wearing that. Aren't you?
The
Are you?
elven cloak? Yeah, I have
The
it.
one that talks, yeah.
Well, the cloak doesn't talk. It's the brooch that talks.
Yeah.
Well, Elwyn. All right. All right. You try to be as quiet as you can, making your way around it. But the tent where you'd already kind of pushed it over is not pushed it all the way over, but you kind of knocked it down, and your foot catches on the cloth of it and makes noise. Following you basically, where it's kind of caught on your foot for a second, pulling it around, and you hear the owlbear kind of screech and kind of begin to move that direction. You rolled a natural 3, so.
Yeah.
Artemis' turn. The owlbear you can't see. In fact, actually, you probably wouldn't have been Ben. You wouldn't have been able to see, other than kind of knowing where Sarah was when she casted it. That the kind of sphere go up around you. That you kind of knew generally where it was. but you kind of stomped your way around, I would say, and still made your way to where you are. So, Arteme, you're standing very close to the fire. You can still feel the heat from it, but you can't see anything. You just hear the angry owlbears outside this field.
Okay. I wouldn't really do anything.
Let's see, hang on one second. There's something I wanted to check on your sheet here. Never mind. Okay. I was checking your skill proficiency to see if there was one in there that Arteme might have thought to use, but she doesn't have proficiency, so.
No, and I forgot to change my spells, so there's not really much. I keep forgetting to change my spells.
Well, you can. I mean, you'd be resting now, anyways. Your trance, being over. So as soon as this is over, you can change them if you want to. Just remember, you can always do it with a long rest anyway. So I'll be applying the long rest.
Yeah,
assuming
that's
you
what
survive this,
because we had a long rest when we slept for the night, and I forgot to change them.
Yeah. Okay. Samson, in the middle of this, he murmurs. This is really unnerving when you put this this field up, and he's kind of just standing there he's kind of halfway geared, like he doesn't have his armor on all the way, and he's just stopped, like he's just frozen in place. Like he murmurs that, but you hear him stop, putting his the metal clanking. I've been trying to put his armor on. Your turn.
God, does it look like the owlbear's gonna move at all?
It spent its turn clawing at the darkness, just paused, kind of passing into the field and then back out again, and then kind of started to move towards the sound that Norok made when he pulled the tent.
All right. Well, I still have my shadow knife up. Or no, it's been. How long has it been?
It's been over a minute, and it's a 1 minute spell.
Yeah, alright. I will use... Shoot, how many sorcery points does it take?
To do what?
Create a spell slot. It takes 3, so perfect. So I'll use the last 3 of my sorcery points. Second spell slot, and use my shadow knife, and I'm just gonna throw it at him.
Okay. All right, go ahead and take it off him. Well, it doesn't matter. If it lasted for another 8 rounds, I don't want it to fall off. So, all right, go ahead and target him and throw it.
There.
You got a natural 20 on it.
Oh man.
Okay. Yeah, hang on, I'm reading the special effect here. All right, that works. All right, so you holding the broom and the bag in your left hand, kind of the straps around it, and then you're holding onto the broom with your left hand. You fling a shadow knife at it. As it's kind of pawing at the air, you kind of toss it, like threading the needle a little bit between its claws, and it just hits it right in the chest, basically, like the muscled chest area. So not in the heart, but in the certainly a spot that hurts, and sinks deep into it, and then it kind of disappears. But it shrieks very angrily, and it falls down, falling slightly into the field again. But then immediately spins around and starts to kind of, like a bear, kind of a jaunting run, rushing off into the woods as fast as it can. It would be fear, would be the effect, but since it's, here anyways and rushing off, it's kind of up to you guys on how you handle that. But it's not its turn yet, so it can't actually move, but is that the end of your turn?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, is Sai doing anything?
No.
All right. Then now that it's its turn, it has to use its entire turn and dash, so it would be 80 feet that it rushes off into the distance, if you guys are not, impeding it in any way. So, Norok, it'll be around to your turn. Is that you breathing on the mic, or is that the fan?
He's underneath the
yeah,
fan.
sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything because, I'm going to listen, and okay, do I hear anything? Because I'm sure I heard it running, and I assume I could hear running in the other direction, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. As soon as it took off running, I dropped darkness.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then I guess I see its ass end, so I'm just going to stay there because I was trying to avoid killing it again anyway. So.
Okay. Well, there's a big bloody mess, in the little woods area that's next to your camp, and a trail that is following this one as it's running away. but it rushes off into the woods in the same direction that its mate and the babies were. So it's gone as long as you guys aren't impeding it. It is run away.
Sweet.
All right, let me drop that circle here. There we go. Samson, with the field gone down, kind of stands up and looks, seeing it run away, and then he just kind of sighs like exhaustedly and almost annoyed, and starts taking the rest of the armor back off, the ones he was just putting back on. He says, "Well, that was an eventful night."
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
What happened? I just heard you shriek, and then those things were on us.
There was this, like, melodic voice, and I just got super sleepy, and the next thing I know, there's these 2 baby owlbears in camp, and they're stealing our shit and running away.
He kind of make a... Well, shit. You're telling the truth, so go ahead and make it as a persuasion check.
Oh, is the bag strap still broken?
Yeah, she cut it, but it's like it's a thin cut. Like it could be.
I'm gonna use Mendon.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a screenshot of this so you can see, just because it's extra amusing.
Okay.
It's magic, so it doesn't work.
There you go. You see that, Becky?
That is awesome.
So, since it's a contest, you know what? I was gonna say roll it again, but I would just say that he just kind of looks at you quizzically, like maybe he doesn't quite believe it, but he doesn't know what to believe because he's still a little bit groggy. But he had a natural 1, and then you rolled a natural 1 as well. So it's technically, you know what? Actually, with your modifier, it probably would have mattered anyways, because his modifier would be a 0. So, anyway, it's particularly amusing, both natural 1s. But he kind of just finishes doffing the half of his gear that he had put on, and just sits down with like a harumph. He says, "Well, I don't know how much rest we're going to be able to get after that, but at least it went smoothly. You got your things back, I assume."
Yep, we're good.
He kind of looks over and is he doesn't move the bag, but you can tell that he's like kind of eyeing the bag that his things are in, the big plates.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. Your bag seemed too heavy. They just wanted ours. I'm assuming because it had deer in it. Smelled good.
Yeah.
So I was curious if you guys were going to catch why, but it's actually so I'll tell you specifically. This is out of narrative. It's not that the deer are in it because they can't smell that. So, well, you know what? Actually, this is going to spoil something potentially a little bit for Becky. Just Sarah can't act on this information. Do you guys remember how that bag works? What's inside that bag?
Yeah, I was wondering how they would be able to smell it, but I assume the reason they went straight for the bag was because of the deer.
Well, okay,
Because
so
isn't it like another pocket dimension?
Yes,
or something
that's
like
it.
that?
Yeah, so they
That's-
wouldn't be able to
so-
smell it, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
what's in the bag is a pocket dimension, but the outside of the bag, meaning the cloth that it's made of, the strap, the leather on the outside of the bag, Arteme cut up deer and put it inside with her hands. She didn't wash her hands before she touched the bag, therefore the bag would have that smell on the bag. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And she also, at some point, threw it over her shoulder, and therefore the bag strap could potentially have this, the smell of deer and so on it. Originally, it was going to be, depending on what you guys chose to do, anyways. If I was going to have them come in the night, this was one of a small table of options that I had, it was just going to be the babies just came in and stared at the fire. But because there was deer on there, I was like, well, they'd be interested in the smell of that, so maybe they would try to grab that and bring it back. The way that animals that are just baby animals that are learning to hunt would do that. The same way that a kitten will bring in a dead snake or a bird because they're trying to provide for the family, kind of a thing. Babies might do the same thing with this. They smell the deer on it, bring it back to mom and dad. Well, they get back to mom and dad and feel like they're being attacked, and mom and dad are angry. Hence, all of this that happened. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyways, it made it extra funny that because the deer on there was like, well, okay, well, maybe they'll just try to steal that instead. I thought it'd be funny. So, but you guys have, handled that anyways. You're back at camp, able to rest, assuming that's what you're doing. It was probably near the end of Sarah's rest anyways. What are you guys doing?
I'm gonna
going to
clean
sleep.
up the bag a bit. And tag with carrot. Because it's the inside of the bag that is magical, right? Like the
Correct.
strap is. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna fix
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, that was supposed to be my second question. Was the bag
Well,
itself is the magic, not the
So
strap?
I don't
Because mending only works on non-magical items, so.
Yep.
Yeah, but so the specifics of it, it's actually I would say that if the bag was torn, not the strap, but the leather of the bag itself, that wouldn't work. But it's just the strap. The strap could be replaced.
Okay.
That the strap itself is not what's enchanted, essentially. But at the same time, I don't like the idea that at least by rules as written, magic items are indestructible, and I don't think that's exactly fair. I mean, if you can make something, it can be created. If you can create something, if you can build it, that is in itself a means of destruction. You're literally taking existing materials, the atomic structure of that, and smashing it together. Right? That's how cooking works, for example. So if you could do that, then you have to be able to disassemble it as well. It's just the physics, basic physics, is that it would have to be possible for that to work. So I don't exactly like that they would be in most cases indestructible anyway, unless that was a specific kind of an enchantment to make it indestructible. So by default, as far as I'm concerned, magic items are not indestructible, just maybe harder to destroy. Anyway,
So basically, you could destroy a magic item, but you need to use a certain kind of magic to be able to counteract the magic.
It depends what it
Because
is. I mean, if it was a piece of paper, you could just tear it, same as anything else. I wouldn't say that they're too much more durable. It just depends on what it is. I would say that they're only more durable because the materials used to make it would be valuable ones in the first place. Meaning you wouldn't try to enchant a rusty old dagger because it'd be garbage anyways, right? So if you used better metals in the first place, it would be durable for that reason, but not necessarily because of the enchantment, unless the enchantment was to make it more durable.
Okay, though with like a piece of like an enchanted paper, depending on what you're using, because you have to use a special ink, which is pretty expensive, along with a special kind of paper, it would be a bit more durable. So being able to say just rip it up with your hands wouldn't necessarily be possible, but if you have a sharp enough knife, you could technically, in theory, be able to destroy it.
Well,
or at least rip.
The special paper you're talking about is what's called vellum, and vellum is actually sheepskin. So, I mean, it would be harder to rip because it's skin. But beyond that, you potentially could rip it with your hands. I mean, vellum, if you've ever... drafting is done on vellum. I mean, it's something you can actually buy. It's not like it's not a, some D&D thing. It's literally paper you can go to a store and buy, vellum. And that's what scrolls and things like that are written on in D&D.
Okay.
But anyways, so Sarah's watch is over. So is she going to go to sleep?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
She's going straight to bed.
Okay.
She's just like, I'm done. Goodbye.
The other thing, I want to point out something that Becky can know, but Sarah would not necessarily have figured out. And it's up to you to kind of give me an idea of when you think she would be able to figure this out. Has Becky figured out why that eye couldn't find her yet?
Yes, and during the last session, I had asked if Sarah had figured it out, and you said yes, and that was why Sarah had grabbed the tube.
Okay, that's right. Okay, we did. Okay, then
Yeah,
that
was
being
why she grabbed it in
said,
the first place.
that was part of my question too. Is that being said, then she is accepting a certain amount of risk by making that choice. You understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay, because she'd be potentially visible now, where she wasn't before.
After the dog fight, it was, yeah.
Just bring it on.
She'll,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
She wants to try to communicate, and she knows she can't do that with it in the bag.
All right, that's fair. I wanted to kind of set that table case because that's well, I'll just tell you that of course will come up, but since you chose that specifically, I guess that makes it a little easier rather than having it sprung on you later. So.
Yeah,
All right.
it was, if dogs are going to keep coming at me and doing that, I might as well at least talk to him and try to figure stuff out.
Okay. All right. So Artemis' turn for watch.
Yep.
All right. Then everybody else settles back down as best they can. It is still this season the morning comes relatively early. You guys are basically in late fall at this point. Mid to late. Oh, sorry. Beginning of fall actually. Sorry. The rest of your watch goes pretty smoothly, relatively boring. Sun starts to come up it starts to get light. You can't see it because it's coming up over the mountains to the east, the Durain Peaks. You guys can actually close that map now too. But basically, morning comes the rest of the time had been uneventful. I'll go ahead and apply your rest here. Fox, if you want to go ahead and change out your spells, go right ahead. There you go.
I changed them before forgetting.
Sure. Norok, your exhaustion, you're able to kind of get enough of a rest in that, you know, since it was the middle of the night anyways, you got your full rest. So no more exhaustion.
Sweet.
The annoying morning birds. There we go. Did I do that right? Yeah. What is that noise? There it is, okay. Alright. But morning comes though, Samson wakes up, still looking similarly as red-eyed and exhausted as he had previously. Doesn't appear to be, it doesn't appear to be getting worse, but it doesn't appear to be getting any better either, as far as what Norok has noticed. Sarah and Artemis, you both have noticed, of course, that he's very red-eyed as well, just not specifically the notes that I gave Norok. So, gee, I mean, you can, it's up to you if you would have told them at some point, but you really haven't had an opportunity where Samson was not present.
Yeah, no. So, again, same level as yesterday, seems like?
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be any worse, but he doesn't seem to be getting any better either. So whatever it is, like, you know what I would say at this point, you might think that maybe instead of what your initial assessment was, maybe he's sick.
Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking.
maybe Norok is starting to wonder that maybe he's sick or something.
Yeah,
or
so
something
it's not
else.
what I thought it was.
Well, specifically because he's never acted inebriated either. That's just how he looked.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick question for Seraphina. Would she have noticed when she first met him, did he look that way?
Yes.
Okay.
All three of you notice that he hasn't changed. He's looked drawn and exhausted and red-eyed the entire time. Norok specifically, because he rolled high enough, noticed something different when he showed up at the camp carrying that thing on his back.
Okay, then in the morning, Sarah would just ask him if he's feeling okay.
Okay. He says, I mean, as fine as I can be after having slept on the ground and, you know, being woke up in the night by some bears. I mean, why do you ask?
You look really, really tired, like more than somebody who's fought owlbears in the middle of the night.
He squints a little bit. Make a, not really persuasion. I guess just make a charisma check, flat charisma, to see whether he takes offense or not. Okay. So I would say that, are you intending it to come off as offensive, or are you intending to come off as concern?
Concern.
Okay.
Maybe not necessarily for him, for us, but
Okay. He says, I mean, I feel as good as I, you know, suppose I could at the moment. I don't know that I've really any of your business, but I mean, I appreciate your concern anyway.
Alright, well, if there's anything I can do, just let me know.
He says, I mean, we're looking like we're heading into war here. I don't know that anybody's going to look all that prim and proper. I mean, should I be carrying around makeup or something?
Nope. You just look really, really, you know, don't take this the wrong way. You just look really haggard. So, you know, if you need some help, I just, you know, want you at your best if we're going into, you know, trouble.
He kind of nods and looks at the, you know, the embers, which have all burned down, of course, the fire there. And he just kind of nods a little bit. And you see him, he kind of looks over towards the bag again. You notice that he kind of, his eyes are drawn to it relatively often. And he looks back, not directly at you, but kind of just, you know, your general direction, in a, you know, polite way to speak to you without staring at you. And he says, well, I mean, your concern is probably well-founded. I haven't necessarily been feeling my best, but, you know, I gotta say I'm not too concerned with my appearance at the moment. We've got bigger things to worry about.
Okay.
But, I mean, honestly, I appreciate the concern, so thank you.
No problem.
And he just stands back up off of the kind of log he was leaning against, and picks the bag up, and there's this huge harumph, and he kind of lifts it up, throws it over his shoulder. He says, so, should we be at it then?
Yeah. If you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay, you guys kind of pack up everything. Get all the tent supplies put back in the bag of holding, the newly mended and recovered bag of holding, and begin your trek down the rest of the way. You have, from what you can see, you're about probably. Time-wise, it's probably, especially because you had to, sleep a little longer after the fight, since it was interrupted there too. It's probably 8 a.m. at this point, but on Sunday. But you guys are kind of making your way down the cliff here, and it looks like it'll probably take you 4 or 5 hours at least to get to this line of trees. And basically, once you get to that, you're in the kind of relatively not dense, but kind of a sparse wooded area. And then you'd be at the coast not long after. So basically early afternoon, which is what he described originally anyways. But you make it past the kind of the second main road, and are kind of this continuous downward slope. It's not super steep, but a downward slope towards these trees, where there's these occasional kind of thinner, not main roads, but smaller roads that look like they're largely wagon tracks that probably went down towards Cadogan, the town that you're headed towards. And are you guys doing anything else? Any further conversations or anything with Samson? Just kind of killing time and walking?
I'm going to be checking out my arm because I used Darkness 3 times and Shadow Knife twice to see how much it's progressed.
So, it's also just time alone at this point. It has accelerated so much that I would say that Sarah probably has a huge amount of concern at this, that it is now just above the elbow. You have like maybe an inch left before it's going to cover your elbow.
Right, so noticing that, I would go up to Arteme and start asking her if she knows where we can find any of those plants that were mentioned that might be able to slow this shit down, because it's really bad.
Do you remember what they were, Fox? I have them, but do you remember what they were?
Not off the top of my head, but I have a note, and then I don't think there were any in this region, and I had been studying that book, and I don't know if there's any that translate either. I haven't really found.
Got it in my notes somewhere.
I can just tell you what they are. It's fine. If you want to dig through them, that's fine. Actually, I would prefer that you do, because it's more in narrative if you guys are kind of thinking about it. You know what I mean? But the two were Lord's Cross and Void Root.
But those are the names for the plants from where we come from, aren't they?
Yeah, so they would have different names from different regions, sure. But you're actually not that far from where you come from specifically. Norok is a little bit further west. And actually, so here, let me give you guys the map again, actually. This is a really ugly map, and I keep meaning to make a better one for you guys, because I'm just not very good at it. I have some really great map-making software, but I'm so not artistic that every time I try to make them, they come out looking shitty like this. But you guys... So, I mean, you guys can see where you guys remember this map, right? Everybody have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this new arrow I just made at the top, you guys are that way. You're basically to the east over there. But what you're seeing down, you guys remember Al-Qadir, which is where you were, and then you guys went northeast. You went this way with the Crowblinders until you get to Dunskathak. Basically, Dunskathak, the top arrow, the first one that I made of the two, that points to the east there. Dunskathak is that way. And basically, if you were to follow the coastline that you guys are heading to now, you're coming towards almost the middle, basically, but you're coming towards the coast. And if you were to follow that coastline, you would get to Curtin, which is where Arteme was picked up. If you went further west, you'd get to Eifelstead, which is where Sarah was, outside of Eifelstead. And if you go further west, you'd get to where the Antaros tribe is. So I'll get you guys a better map, but basically that's essentially the area that you guys are in. So, I mean, you're not too far as flora and fauna are concerned from the area that you're from, and that's the names there. They probably wouldn't be too different here, I would tell you. As long as they were people that were speaking the same language and similar cultures.
Okay. So it was Lord's Cross and
Void Root.
Yep.
I finally found my notes.
Yeah.
I haven't found it in mine, but so I remade a note. But when I was looking at the book, okay, so I would know what they look like.
Yeah, You'd probably
Okay.
have heard of Lord's Cross anyways, because it's something that grows usually in snowier areas anyways. It's like an Arctic desert. So desert doesn't mean sand. Desert means basically sparse vegetation. So like a snowy desert, like a tundra, basically is where you'd find Lord's Cross. Void root is usually in caves. It's a kind of a milky white root that grows in caves.
Okay, so while I'm looking at that herb book I got, I would have tried to find I'll relook at it. Like I'll look at it while we're walking and see if I could find any plants that are similar to the description of that.
Okay. Give me a. Did I give you an alchemy skill or no?
I
This would be
don't
more
think
nature,
so.
anyways. Yeah, go ahead and give me a nature check.
Because that's why I was perusing the book, but I couldn't remember why I was perusing the book at last.
Oh, by the way, I did this quietly enough so that way Samson didn't hear us.
Okay.
He still doesn't know about my arm.
Okay.
This is same since my veins.
I doubt Fox is getting any of those references.
I have no clue. It's just
You're-
going over my head.
You're not missing out on much, don't worry.
That's an awesome movie. Yes, she is.
It's pretty stupid, to be fair. It's stupid.
No, it's fucking dumb as shit. but
Yeah,
it's
it
funny
was
though.
it was funny because of our age at the time. That's more that than anything. So there is the best you can come up with is the closest thing to Lord's Cross that grows in more temperate regions like you are is called rillfoil. And it's a similar kind of a plant in that it grows in similar regions and has similar kind of traits to it. In that the when you break it open, there's this kind of sap inside of it that does have some minor healing properties, and maybe it would help, but it's probably going to be pretty minimal. Like the kind of concoction you might need to make to actually really make the salve that might help this, you would really need either the proper plants for it. But this might help better than nothing,
Okay.
anyways.
What about the void root?
To avoid root, you'd need, proper caves. You'd need subterranean wet caves.
Okay. Oh. So, like the void root, there's no substitute for that one or nothing.
That kind of, you would need the same kind of an environment to grow it. Even if it wasn't void root specifically, if you found a similar plant, you would need the same kind of environment.
Okay.
Yeah. That kind of the kind of traits that one has, the plants that have that are also in the same kind of environment. So that's what she tells you, Sarah.
Okay. Well, I guess just keep an eye out and we'll hope that I don't lose my whole arm.
What I could, no, I wouldn't be able to anyway. Because we haven't run into any bloodhounds, have we?
Bloodhound dogs?
Yeah.
No, not really. Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say I could probably try and locate them with that. But...
If you found the right regions, you'd be able to find those herbs. Presumably, they're not super rare. Void root's not easy to find, sure. But if you found wet caves where it could grow, then you could probably find some.
Okay, well, if we find anything on the way, we'll go for that.
Sure.
So we're looking for void root, Lord's Cross, or real.
Rillfoil, you might be able to find some. Like, you wouldn't find it right here. You'd have to get maybe into the woods, where you're heading towards, maybe. But it's not going to be a high chance. It's just not a common plant. Lord's Cross isn't uncommon. You just got to be in the snow. And then Void Root is not. It's listed as rare. I have it listed as rare. But you could find it potentially in wet caves. You would just have to find, caves that are either subterranean enough that there's enough water, like the water table's high enough, or caves where there's, regular water flowing through it.
Like seawater or fresh water?
Well, that's kind of. Okay. It's supposed to be fresh water. It's supposed to not be, brackish maybe at best. But I would say that the plant probably doesn't care as much because the plants can filter out. Although it would probably ruin the plant. Yeah, the salt would probably kill it. It would probably die. I would say most plants would probably need to be saltwater specific. So I would say in this particular case, since you are heading to the ocean, I may allow the opportunity where you could potentially find it because there would be brackish options as well. You guys know what brackish water is?
Yeah,
No.
it's like extremely salty water.
Well, it's a mix. It's fresh and salt water mixed together. So it's basically you have brackish water when a river hits the ocean. It's brackish in that kind of band along the middle where it's both. And yeah, so basically you would have brackish areas where a river hits the ocean, and you would have those along the coastline. So presumably you could find some as long as it could live within brackish water. And I would say the voidroot's probably a durable enough plant that you could find some. It just might be a lower chance than if it was a regular freshwater cave. Say, for example, Wave Echo from Balance. You guys remember Wave Echo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep an eye out for those because I haven't found any either. Because like when I went on the hunting trip, I'd look for herbs and stuff, but I wouldn't have found.
Just keep anytime you're doing anything like that. Just let me know specifically, of course, and we'll have you roll along the tables for that, because I have tables for all of the plants and animals you might find, things like that, all that stuff, including the entire alchemy thing I built too. So. Because I haven't gotten to use it too much yet, but I've used it a little bit in our other campaign as well, the one I get to play in. And I blew shit up. I threw a fucking bomb that blew up a whole bunch of were rats. They were rats, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody noticed. And then a bomb, like 6 hours, 8 hours later, everybody knows.
Yep.
Whatever.
And nobody noticed mine, and then the police show
Way
up
she
for the
goes.
second one.
That happens.
But they became
aware
aware after the first one, and the second one it was like shit's happening.
Yeah, maybe that first one was just a car backfiring. It was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, again, Fox is out of the loop, doesn't understand what we're talking about.
She can join us anytime if she wants to hop in.
Yeah.
Play on Sundays.
Yeah. You should, Fox,
You
it's
guys
fun.
played early though.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's usually it's at 1 o'clock our time, so 4 o'clock yours, so you just have to, you would have to be sleeping like a normal human, kind of a schedule almost.
Wow, like a normal human.
I'm not a normal human, that's for sure, so I'm not one to complain.
Mhm.
All right. Anyways, so back to the narrative here, though. That's what she's told you, Sarah, and Samson is none the wiser. He's kind of marching at the front since he's passed the back to Norok at this point.
Well, I'll keep an eye out again for the plants.
Okay. With your nature well, that was actually the nature check to see whether you know it, but I'll just use the same roll. But even still, looking through it, you don't see any real foil just yet, but you're not to the trees yet. But I would say that with you kind of regularly thinking on it, I'll give you maybe advantage, or at least a lower DC
Okay,
when you get within
once
the right
we get
regions.
more into the trees, like walking, I would just kind of like go away from the group into the trees a bit, like look and get like mushrooms, herbs and stuff. That way
Okay.
there we could have like something else to eat. So I just feel like going in and out of the group, like making sure I keep them in hearing.
Sure. Well,
So while I do that, I could add that to my list of things to look.
okay. Before, just as you guys are getting close to the kind of line of trees, actually, where you're getting towards this kind of point where you're passing the copses of trees you guys have been passing are getting more and more frequent and more dense, so much closer together. Basically, you're getting to where the tree line is going to beginning. You're going to be entering the actual woods here shortly. But when you get closer to it, there's this kind of repeating noise in the distance, and it's hard to pick out what it is because, like, one, it's kind of echoing along this tree line because it's basically the only vertical structure almost of all these trees. So it's kind of echoing along it, so it takes you a second. Artemis, you actually would be the first to pick it out, but you eventually kind of narrow the distance and look over towards this direction that it's coming from, and there's a small voice, and it's yelling for help over and over and over again. Takes you, like I said, a second to kind of figure out where it's coming from. But once you've able to kind of pinpoint where it is, you're probably the only one that'll be able to pick out what it is either. But you see a small girl, maybe like 8 or 9 years old or so. She's in very ragged and dirty clothing. She looks like she's got dirt all over her face as well. From a distance, it's hard to tell, but she's a few hundred yards away still. That's jumping up and down near the tree line, and is kind of jumping up and down, like waving her hands over her head, like she's trying to get your attention. Just yelling "help, help" over and over again.
I'd start off toward.
Samson stops and looks at you. Says, "Where's she going?"
Do none of us notice this? Except
Sarah and Norok were probably hearing it, but maybe it just sounded, maybe you were chalking it, because it's pretty far away, maybe chalking it up to just, nature sounds of some sort. But Samson definitely didn't hear it. You just see Artemis kind of walking off in that direction.
I don't know, but apparently we're going this way. Bye.
You're still on your broom, right?
Yep.
Okay. Just right hand just dangling empty on your
Well,
up to
no,
your side.
I've got the
You're mage handing
mage
it?
hand
Okay.
up,
All right,
so
mage
you know
handing
it's
your
just like
sleeve.
thin sleeve from like elbow to wrist and then hand.
That works. Norak going along too?
Yeah, anytime the littles go, I gotta go too.
All right. You head off in that direction then, and as you're getting closer, all of you kind of eventually are able to make out this little girl. But she kind of stops throwing her hands up as soon as she sees you guys are running or coming her way, and is just running as fast as she can towards Artemis, towards the whole group at Artemis ahead of you guys. But as she's getting closer and closer, Artemis, you can see that there's just tears streaming down her face. And like there's streaks of where the dirt has been kind of washed away by the tears a little bit. And she, like, you guys can hear this, Artemis being probably 20 feet ahead of you guys. Not you guys can still all overhear it because she's not being quiet about this. But she says, "Please, you have to help. Our house collapsed and my mom is trapped and we've been stuck for days and she can't hold out much longer."
Where?
And she's like, she reaches up and kind of grabs your sleeve and starts pulling you, and is kind of like, not hard, but like trying to get you to come, and is already turned and like pointing out towards the woods and is starting to head back towards the woods.
I'll follow her, I guess.
Okay, everybody going?
I feel like shit for saying this, but I'm gonna do an insight check.
Go ahead and roll the insight check. We're gonna go ahead and end here anyways because it'll take too long to get into that. That would be, going too far into the overtime. But we'll pick up here next week. But we'll see how Sarah feels about it. All right, I'm gonna tell you that. Well, shit. Should I tell you this or should I save it and not tell you till next week? Because you can't spoil it. I don't want you telling Sarah or telling Ben or Fox.
Just save it. It'll be fine.
All right, but I'm gonna. You got a natural 20, so I'm gonna. Remember, you guys cannot cheat. I'm going to tell you this at the beginning of the next section then, Becky. But you can't cheat and take that knowledge as fact until, meaning you can't act on that, okay? You still have to act in the way that Norak and Artemis would, but what Sarah thinks about what's happening will be different. So, sound good?
Yep.
All right, guys. Then we will pick up next week. What is next week? That is the 20th. Anybody have anything for July 20th?